Good afternoon, everybody. It's 7 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on SuperTalk. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and we're setting down for another 4 hours of an extravaganza we like to call The Drive, where we bring you news and information you can use, and then you walk around with all this knowledge in your head. That's right. You're going to be smarter. That's our goal every day. Let's get into what's happening with the Supremes. The Supreme Court heard arguments today with regard to the student loan bailout that Biden has been trying to push. If you've followed my show at all, you know that I'm of the very strong opinion, although I'm not a lawyer, but I'm of the strong opinion that this was completely unconstitutional. First of all, we got Nancy Pelosi out here when she was Speaker of the House who said, you know what, the president can't do this by himself. He has to go to Congress. She's on the record actually saying this.
People think that the President of the United States has the power for debt forgiveness. He does not. He can postpone, he can delay, but he does not have that power. That has to be an act of Congress.
Yeah, and Biden even went out and acted as if he had gone to Congress.
Secondly, if you don't have one of those loans, you just get 10,000 written off. It's passed. I got it passed by a vote or two.
No, he never went to Congress. I don't know where he's getting that. That's completely wrong. He never asked Congress for permission on this. When he says, I got it passed by a vote or two.
It's passed. I got it passed by a vote or two.
He's very confused or lying, one of the two. I think it's probably very confused. So, it starts out like that. So it was challenged in the high court, and there are many complicated legal questions to be answered here. But let's start first from the political angle. Already this morning, Chuck Schumer was up early and at him, but even before the Supreme Court began hearings today, making the case that, Republicans are standing in the way of our efforts to reduce student loan debt.
Republicans talk a big game about helping working people, but today's case before the Supreme Court, pushed by Republican office holders who oppose the president's plan, is a slap in the face of working Americans across the country.
Well, is it really, Chuck? I'm not so sure I can agree with you on that. In fact, I am absolutely certain I do not agree with you on that. What you're doing is you're having the president pick winners and losers. What about all of the young people who could not afford to go to college? And so they never even bothered. Maybe they wanted to go to college, but they couldn't go to college because they couldn't afford it. And they didn't want to take out loans. What about those who took out loans other than the student loans that are approved in this payback? Went to a bank or something. What about people who saved? I'm very proud of the fact that I saved hard so that my daughter could go to school without any student loans. Right? I did everything right. And because I did everything right, what a fool I was. I should have not done that. I should have just taken out a loan and wait for the government to pay it off. What an idiot I am. What about people who made a decision that they weren't going to college and they're out there working jobs that they learned? Maybe they learned a trade. Maybe they were out there, making money every day. And you're going to take their tax dollars and use it to pay off these folks who took out a loan, which, by the way, it's a loan. This drives me guano crazy more than you know. So, no, it's really, he is looking, when you have a conversation about this and you say, well, Republicans are not looking out for the working man. Well, I think there are a lot of working people within the sound of my voice who think this is a horrible idea. Chuck, John Thune spoke about this morning.
There are the direct costs of the plan that will be paid for by the federal government, in other words, by taxpayers, including those who never went to college and those who have already paid off their student loans. And there are the indirect costs, like the fact that the present student loan giveaway is likely to prolong our current inflation crisis.
Well, yeah, there is that. Some people are saying 400 million. I've heard 400 billion. And then I've heard 500 billion, half a trillion dollars. That's what we're talking about here. Well, the arguments before the high court were very interesting. Remember, you have a 6-3 conservative majority in the high court. And Solicitor General, the person who argues on behalf of the Biden administration, was making an argument and was interrupted politely by Neil Gorsuch.
There are always going to be the cost to the government of offering that benefit to borrowers.
Again, not just the cost to the government. I'm sorry to interrupt, but what I think they argue that is missing is cost to other persons in terms of fairness, for example, people who've paid their loans, people who don't have planned their lives around not seeking loans, and people who are not eligible for loans in the first place, and that $500 billion is being diverted to one group of favored persons over others.
That's right. See, the Biden administration is picking winners or losers. Here is John Roberts, the Chief Justice.
Casual observers would say if you're going to give up that much amount of money, if you're going to affect the obligations of that many Americans on a subject that's of great controversy, they would think that's something for Congress to act on.
Well, it sure damn is. It really is. It really is something that Congress should be looking at and should have had a say in. Here is the bottom line on all this, and this is the thing that just makes you so angry you could spit. This is a perfect example of the Biden administration wanting to do something and saying, I don't care what the law says, we're going to do it, and we're going to find some way to do it. And so they just unilaterally decide on their own, we're going to forgive a lot of student loan. $10,000 for some, $20,000 for others. And we're just going to do it because I said we could do it. And then, they told everybody, hey, if you've got one of these student loans, don't worry, man. We're going to pay off $10,000 or $20,000 worth of your debt. We're just going to forgive it. We're going to pay it off. And everybody who had a student loan just got real excited. Understand what this was. This was political. Again, this was trying to get young people excited just before the midterm elections. And when, you got, if you're a young person out there with, several $1,000s worth of student loan debt, and somebody comes along and says, we're going to forgive $10,000 of your debt, well, you think that's great. You think that's fabulous. And that imbues you to go out and to vote Democrat. Well, look what the Democrats did. They're going to forgive my student loan debt. But, Biden, I think the Biden administration knew deep in their heart this was never going to fly. It was just something they wanted to make people think we were going to do it, so they'll go out and vote Democrat in the midterm election. And then, when as expected, the Supreme Court steps up and says, I'm sorry. You just, that was a nice try, but you can't do that. That's not legal. That's not constitutional. I'm sorry. Well, then all the Biden administration has to do is go, well, I wanted to do this for you, but those mean old conservatives in the Supreme Court and those meanies, the Republicans, they're against it. And, they stopped me from doing this nice thing that I planned to do for you. From Reuters, conservative U.S. Supreme Court justices on Tuesday signaled skepticism over the legality of President Joe Biden's plan to cancel, they say $430 billion in student debt for about 40 million borrowers, with the fate of his policy that fulfilled a campaign promise hanging in the balance. The 9 justices heard arguments in the Biden administration's appeal of 2 lower court rulings blocking the policy that he announced last August in legal challenges brought by 6 conservative-leaning states and 2 individual student loan borrowers opposed to the plan's eligibility requirements. Under the Democrat president's plan, the U.S. government would forgive up to $10,000 in federal student debt for Americans making under $125,000 who took out loans to pay for college and other post-secondary education, and $20,000 for recipients of Pell Grants awarded to students from lower-income families. The U.S. Solicitor General defended the program on behalf of the Biden administration's faced skeptical questions from conservative members of the court, including Chief Justice John Roberts and Justices Samuel Alito, Clarence Thomas, and Brett Kavanaugh. Roberts questioned whether the scale of the debt relief could be considered a mere modification of an existing student loan program. We're talking about $500 billion, 43 million Americans. Does that fit under the normal understanding of modify? The policy intended to ease the financial burden of debt-saddled borrowers face scrutiny by the court under the so-called major questions doctrine. Its 6-3 conservative majority has employed this muscular judicial approach to invalidate major Biden policies deemed lacking clear congressional authorization, and they've done it in the past. Look, 6-3 sounds like the die is cast here. There are some questions of standing, but the Supreme Court certainly gave every hint today that the 6 members of the court who are considered conservatives will strike this down and send a strong message yet again to the Biden administration that you just can't go off and do things without checking with, the Congress. You don't have the authority you think you have. And, they have brushed them back before. This would be a major brushback. But see, I think, I really, truly, deeply in my heart believe this was all a game, all a ruse. They knew they would never get away with this. They knew they could never make this work. All they wanted, well, they had a problem in the midterms. Young people were very disenchanted with where the Democrats were. I mean, they went in there, they voted for Biden, and they helped to make him president, and they thought, he was going to be good about making this good on his promise that he's going to do away with student loan debt. And so he threw something out there that said, yeah, we're going to forgive you of your debt, knowing it was never going to pass constitutional scrutiny. Biden's, come on. I mean, he's not the brightest bulb, but he's at least that bright. He knew it would never pass. I don't care what the lawyers told. Everybody in town knew this was never going to stand up before the high court, and it doesn't look like it's going to. The high court will hand down its ruling on this likely in June. But if everything we heard today, and it started out 2 hours of arguments, went actually 4 hours. That's how detailed the arguments were. But everything we heard today seems to suggest the high court will be leaning against the Biden administration in this ruling. 20 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. It's that time of year again when the housing market starts to heat up with rates and home prices coming finally down over what they were last year. Accurate Mortgage is predicting that competition for homes among buyers may be at least as fierce as last year, if not more. So now is the time to get pre-qualified for Accurate Mortgage home loans so you can be one step ahead of your competition and win the home of your dreams. Accurate Mortgage has many options to help make your new mortgage more affordable, such as a payment reduction mortgage, perfect for easing into your new payment. I mean, just listen to how some of the customers who have used Accurate speak of this company. Super easy to get the process started, and we're there from start to finish. They never made us feel like any question was dumb, and we felt very comfortable talking with them. We closed our home in 19 days. They are the definition of a dream team. I cannot thank them enough. That's Krista B. And I can tell you my own personal experience. I had a very good experience working with the folks at Accurate. For more details, visit Accurate Mortgage today at AccurateMTG.com. Accurate Mortgage Group, a division of Acopia LLC, is an equal housing lender. NMLS number is 4664.
The Supreme Court's discussing student loan forgiveness, a man who's possibly armed and dangerous in Clarksville, and some news with Taylor Swift. That and more 3:30 right here. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
The stories you're about to hear are true. Only the names have been changed to protect the innocent. I was working the day watch out of Midtown. It's like whenever I do police news, I like to play the Dragnet theme.
You got a nice,
I'm an old.
You got a nice Dragnet shield up on the TV.
Do you really?
Yeah.
And ta-da! Jack Webb, he was good. All right, in Metro Nashville, they wanted to try. The police department did this controversial device known as an LPR, a license plate reader. And there was, they got permission to run a little test, a 6-month test of this thing. And then they were getting ready to pull the trigger on that. And then the council said, well, in our infinite wisdom, we want to revisit that issue. And they did revisit that issue. And they had to have a whole nother discussion about it. And then they said, okay, we'll give you what I think a 6-month test of the LPRs. Now, I know that among the people listening within the sound of my voice, LPRs are a controversial thing. I'm going to tell you, I'm a fan of them, and I'll tell you why. I initially was very concerned that they could be misused, that they could, for example, anybody who wanted to just, hey, I wonder what Wilson's been up to. And you run his license plate, you find all the places that he's been. Well, apparently, I'm relatively convinced that the way this system works is they scan all license plates, but they only pick up on the ones that are in the system. And in order to get into the system, you have to have a criminal crime number attached saying this person is wanted for burglary, and here's their license plate number. And then if that person goes by an LPR, it will flag police, and they will go and stop that person or track them down. But just apparently curiosity seekers, apparently cannot get into the system and run a search unless there is a criminal complaint attached to the license plate number. Okay, that's my understanding of the safeguards of this system. So, yeah, the idea is we're going to take some bad people off the street, and I'm all in favor of that. By the way, the Supreme Court has ruled, and you may not like it, but the Supreme Court ruled a long time ago, there is no expectation of privacy in a public thoroughfare, in a public street. Well, how's it going so far? Interesting. The Metro Nashville, according to WKRN's website, the Metro Nashville Police Department turned on its license plate recognition cameras, and it's already solved one crime. 39 LPRs went up. On Monday, Metro Police announced a 16-year-old alleged car thief is now facing charges after one of the new LPR cameras flagged a stolen license plate inside the teen's home, police said. Listen to this. Tells you what was going on here. Police say inside the home they found 17 different key fobs, that's what you use to start a car, and credit cards for at least 6 different people. Okay, sounds like you got a bad person off the street. LPR technology has the potential to enhance public safety by locating vehicles wanted by law enforcement, said Captain Blaine Whited. The MNPD will use LPR systems to locate stolen vehicles, license plates, and investigate and prosecute felony offenses associated with violent crimes, and locate vehicles involved in reckless driving, such as street racing. Apparently, there's a real concern about the street racers. And so at one point at the Community Oversight Board, they said, well, hold it. Are you using these to detect speed? And they said, no. We know certain people are involved in speed racing. We have their license plates. We put them in the system. We want to have a little conversation with them. And so they're able to track them down that way. So, here it is. The test period has begun. And basically, hours after turning the system on, they have already nagged one alleged car thief and may have, I mean, this person was involved apparently, if you look at the evidence, one would suspect involved in a whole host of other things. If he's got possession of 17 different key fobs and credit cards that belong to 6 different people. How did that happen? I wonder. So we'll be interested to see how this goes and how the Nashville Community Oversight Board feels about it at the end of the 6-month test. It is now 30 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN.
"30 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 75 degrees in Music City. Been a beautiful day. Expecting some rain later on this week, possibly tonight. A chance of showers. Weather and traffic coming up in just a few minutes. Starting in the nation's capital, Supreme Court justices will weigh the constitutionality of the Biden administration's student loan forgiveness program after hearing oral arguments today. Here's details from Devin Dwyer.
We heard in these arguments from Chief Justice John Roberts, Samuel Alito, Clarence Thomas, big concern about the price tag, $500 billion, and whether Congress actually authorized that in this education law passed in 2003. The liberal justices firing back on those questions of standing, suggesting the 6 states that are here challenging this plan wouldn't actually be hurt by the forgiveness of federal student loan debt.
And right now in Tennessee, News 2 says that Clarksville police are asking people to be aware of a man who they say could be armed and dangerous, 27-year-old Dalton Lawrence. He's wanted for reportedly assaulting a 33-year-old man just a few days ago before he fled the scene. Police say that Lawrence knew this victim. This is not a random act of violence. He's about 6 feet tall, weighs around 195 pounds, and has brown hair and green eyes. If you have any info, you're asked to call police. And a rare feat on the music charts for Taylor Swift, Jason Nathanson.
It's 10 for Taylor Swift. As of the most recent Billboard album chart, Taylor Swift has 10 albums in the top 200. Her current disc, Midnight's, at number 3. All the way down to her third album, 2010's Speak Now, at 192. She's only the second woman with 10 simultaneous albums in the top 200. Whitney Houston did it in 2012 following her death. The deaths of David Bowie and Prince also got 10 or more of their albums on the list at the same time. And the Beatles have done it 3 times, once in 2014 and twice in 2010.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Let's talk about assisted family care. And actually, let's talk about your family. I mean, have you looked around your family? Maybe you have over the holidays you got together and you saw some of the elderly members of your family were really struggling. You know, they used to be able to get along just fine, but now the things that they once did so easily, that's become a bit more of a struggle. And you're thinking, man, they're going to need some help. Well, that's where assisted family care can help. They can connect you with a responsible, compassionate, compatible helper to assist you with your loved one's daily needs. And if your loved one is a veteran or a spouse or a widow of a veteran, they could well qualify for a little-known benefit to help cover those kinds of expenses. Assisted Family Care has years of experience in cutting through all of the red tape, and it's considerable to help those in Middle Tennessee who qualify to get access to this benefit. You know, it's challenging dealing with elderly members of your family who need help. Maybe you have a parent, or maybe it's a grandparent, but Assisted Family Care can help you. Assisted Family Care is there for you. Visit Assisted Family Care at assistedfamilycare.com or call this number, 615-833-9725.
Hey everybody, I'm Paul Winkler. The financial world can be full of landmines for investors. On the one hand, investment firms and the financial community will often overcomplicate the financial planning process to confuse investors. As one guy who used to work a big investment firm once told me, if an investor thinks that they're over their head, they'll blindly trust you. And it's easier to sell to them. I'm glad I'm away from that. On the other hand, many people oversimplify investing to the detriment of investors. Just having a little knowledge can be really dangerous. The idea there is the same. It's just a different way of selling things. At Paul Winkler Inc., we like working alongside our clients with an education guidance approach. I believe that there's confidence that comes with knowing what you're doing and why. We abide by the very highest level of fiduciary care, and we use the most sophisticated financial planning tools out there. And every one of our offices is run by a degreed planner with over 20 years experience. No kids fresh out of college. If that sounds like a winning formula, set up a free 15-minute phone call to learn more. Go to paulwinkler.com or call 615-851-1950. You can do this.
It's 38 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock. Apparently, people out there weren't buying my line there about the LPRs.
You struck a nerve.
Apparently people are, Wilson, you bonehead, or worse, because they don't agree with me. Listen, you're entitled to your opinion. I would like to think that my opinion is backed up by facts, but maybe I'm wrong about this. So, if you have a different opinion, and we talked about the LPRs now up in Nashville. If you missed it a moment ago, here's the thing. LPRs, license plate readers, up now. They've already picked up one 16-year-old who for allegedly stealing a car. They got a hit on a stolen license plate, tracked the kid down, made an arrest, a 16-year-old alleged car thief. And then when they went to the teen's home, they found 17 different key fobs. That's like, different devices to start cars, 17 of them, and credit cards from at least 6 different people. This according to WKRN. And I said, I think this is going to be a good thing. I like the idea of getting bad people off the street. And this is technology that can help. And I said, besides, you don't have an expectation of privacy on a public street. And everybody said, Wilson, you're a bonehead. Well, Chris, just share some of the nice thoughts that people had about my segment there.
You're a fool, Wilson, if you believe they won't track you if you say something they don't like. Another person says, that's how they sell it, but it's lies of omission. That's not how these systems work. It's further surveillance state, and it needs to stop.
Okay.
Brian, you're extremely smart, and I love your show, but sometimes you come off as very naive in the trust of the government not to take something that was for our good and weaponize it against us.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that's pretty good. Well, why don't we open up the phones? I've taken my position that I think that this is technology that can really help, because I think we have a real need to get bad people off the street. Maybe you have a different... Convince me with your arguments why you think I'm wrong. 615-737-9986. That's 615-737-9986. If you think I'm a bonehead, I'm willing to listen to your argument. Let's have a polite dialogue about it, okay? We don't have to yell. We don't have to scream. We don't have to shout. We don't have to be ugly with one another. We can have different opinions, and just maybe still be friends, but have a difference of opinion about this. But I want you to hear your arguments. I try to base my arguments on what I think are facts, and I've done my research, and that's why I'm able to back up what I say, because I believe I've done my research. But I mean, I want to hear the other side. I want to know why you feel so passionately about this. Let's go to Sean in Lebanon. Sean, you're on with Brian on the drive. So Sean, tell me how you think I'm wrong and why you think you're right.
Well, actually, Brian, I was calling to say you're 100% right. I've been in law enforcement for 30 plus years, and the safeguards that are put in place make sure that there is no, misuse of the systems and what have you.
All right, so tell me how that works, Sean, just in practical terms.
Well, as you were saying earlier, there has to be a case report associated with any search of a license plate. So if we're looking for, Sean Smith, and he's driving, a Chevy with a license plate of ABC 1234, in order to search that to see if it's been in town, there has to be a case number associated with it. Mm-hmm. So there's a tracking mechanism for it. And, the other thing is, before the LPR systems went in effect where I worked previously, it was the same concerns, Big Brother's watch and this and that.
Right.
These are all prior or previously reported crimes that, again, are documented with case numbers, whether it be a stolen auto, a stolen tag, a named offender in a crime that it has warrants out for them. They don't care that you're out past curfew or who you're driving around with, or who you may or may not be sleeping with. That's all garbage that they try to muddy the water with, because, again, like you said, we're looking for legitimate criminals that are driving through the area.
I'm assuming, Sean, that you're talking about an experience that you had in Wilson County. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, because Wilson County has had this for some time now and thinks that it's a fabulous, fabulous thing. And in fact, that's how I got my mind changed about it. Initially, I was among those people who said, I don't like this at all. But then I found out, I did the research, and I found out how the system works. Okay. Well, Sean, thank you very much for agreeing with me. You're obviously a very bright man, but, I wanted to open up the phone to those people who had a different opinion. Thanks for calling in, though. Ken in Gallatin. Ken, you're on with Brian. What's your idea about this? Convince me that your position is right and my position is wrong. Ken.
Who are you talking to?
Yeah,
yes.
You. Yeah.
You kind of broke up on me. Well, I kind of agree and disagree with you. I think technology is a good thing to have, but it always takes me back to, and I guess Hollywood has done this to my brains, is I always think of Terminator and the Rebel and the Uprising, how it starts. Technology is good until it starts getting to be smarter, or they start wanting to control every aspect of it. So, I think it's good to a point, but at what point do we start sacrificing our freedom and our ability to roam as we please without being watched by Big Brother?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. There are cameras everywhere. I mean, the first thing now that police officers do when there's a crime is they just walk around and say, oh, well, there's one camera there, there's one camera there. Let's go over and request, and we get the video from those cameras. I mean, you can't go anywhere and not be on camera. That's just the way it is today. Now, they're not all networked, but nonetheless, they're there. I don't know. I appreciate the call. I want to see if Jerry in Cross Plains. Jerry, hello. You're on with Brian on the Drive. What do you say? How do you think I'm wrong about this, Jerry?
Well, I agree and disagree with you, Brian. If they do what they say they're going to do, that's great. If they start utilizing it for just everyday people, then that's not great. So the thing about it is we have to trust these people, once again, to do what they say they're going to do. That's where I disagree.
Yeah, I mean, that is a very valid point, because how many times I'm not talking about anybody in this particular argument in Nashville or in Wilson County or wherever they're using these things. But how many times have we been told whoppers by the government, where we're told one thing and then we find out later that that thing wasn't true at all? And while, I generally, as a rule, I tend to give police the benefit of the doubt, because I think generally I believe in law and order, and I believe in the thin blue line, and I think that that generally we're better off in society with a good police department. But I understand that there are bad eggs in every bunch. But what impressed me about what I learned about the Wilson County system is that you absolutely cannot have access to the system to search for someone unless you have a criminal case number attached to it. It has to be attached to an actual active investigation. And if you say, let's say, you're going to recover, I think, with these LPRs, you're going to start to see stolen cars. Big problem, by the way, in Metro Nashville. Huge problem. The number of stolen cars is going to go down dramatically. Why? Because everywhere that stolen car goes, bam, the police are going to be right on it. I mean, you're going to be shocked about that. We're going to start people who have criminal warrants for serious crimes that are pending out there, and they're still free, and police have been trying to find them. If it's attached to a license plate, those people are going back to jail, and they're going back quick. I like that idea. I like that idea. To me, we're cracking down on the bad element. Now, do we need to have safeguards? Yes. Do we need to have people who are doing a check and balance on that? In Metro Nashville, that would be the Community Oversight Board, which I'm not a big fan of, but it's very clear that they're going to be looking very closely at how this thing is utilized. And they're going to demand answers if they feel like something is done that's inappropriate with this software. But I'm not opposed to it at all. And again, I'm not talking about red light cameras. That's a different thing. I'm not talking about speed cameras. That's not what this is. These are cameras that scan license plate numbers as they go by major intersections, in 39 major intersections in Davidson County. And if they find one that's attached to an active criminal case, the police department is flagged. We saw this license plate at. And many times they're captured within moments. Within moments. So I don't think it's a bad thing at all, as long as the safeguards are there and there are people who can double check to make sure the system is not being abused. It could be abused. I'll grant you that. Joe in Smithville, you're on with Brian on the Drive. What do you say, Joe?
Okay, well, I'm with you as long as safeguards are there, but...
No. I'm afraid we lost you, Joe. Yeah.
It's true.
Joe, I can't hear you. We apparently have lost you in the last moment there. I don't know. I'm sorry. That's the problem with cell phones. We'll just call it there. Listen, I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate it when you think I'm wrong, that you call me out on it. And I'm willing to say, as I have on a couple of issues of late, I'm revisiting my thinking on things from time to time. I'm revisiting my thinking on, for example, whether or not we should be involved at all in supporting Ukraine. I'm having very mixed emotions, and I continue to read and to study and to investigate. But I try to make decisions based on facts, not just what I think might be the case. And you know, again, I love it when you come to me and say, let's have a conversation about that. I think you might be off base because, you know, sometimes you're right. Sometimes you're right and I'm wrong. And I'm not ashamed to admit it. I'm never going to be the person who will look you in the eye and say, I'm always right, and you know, you just need to take my word as the ultimate authority on all things. I don't believe that at all. But I do try to bring you information based on fact, and my opinion is based on that. All right, and if you disagree, we can still be friends. We can still be nice to one another. If we see each other down at the Lowe's, we'll just wave at each other in the parking lot and say hi. It's okay. It's 50 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. Well, you know, Cabana and I, wife and I, went down to the Glock store, and initially I thought I was going to be the guy who was the better shot. I thought I'd be the big man down at the range, and, you know, I'd be showing her how to do it. Boy, that didn't turn out quite the way I thought it was going to turn out at all. She sure showed me. But you know what? I had the best time training with her. And so, you know, if you want to do this with your significant other, why don't you make an appointment to go down to the world-famous Glock store? Your significant other, if they're thinking about a handgun of their own, you know, a couple sessions, they will come with free handgun rentals, help you choose the perfect one. And you can try out a huge variety of rental handguns with or without optics as you'd like. Well, I mean, it's a great deal. Now, February is this is the last day of February. But if you want to do this, it's very easy. You just go to shoot270.com and click on book a shooting session. Or alternatively, call this number, 615-682-6565. It's 615-682-6565. Spend some time with your significant other down at McGill's world-famous Glock store. It's minutes from the airports and worth the drive from anywhere.
Supreme Court discussing student loan forgiveness, and a former Perry County deputy being accused of some serious crimes, and a gun reform rally over Uvalde in Austin, Texas today. All that and more coming up. 4 o'clock right here. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, thank you, Mac Morey. Mac Morey in the newsroom. We got Chris Weber in the control room pushing all the blinky buttons, and I am your friend and radio buddy. Let's look at the markets real quick. Dow Jones Industrial Average down 232 points today. The S&P down 12. NASDAQ down 11. All screens are red, and the Dow closes more than 200 points lower. The major averages in February with losses. It's not been a good month on the major indices. This is brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. Learn more at beaconcm.com. It's now 3:58 on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. All right, let's talk about DT McCall's. And one of the things I love about them is that you go to any one of their 5 locations, you're going to find a huge selection of appliances, of furniture, just about anything that you might need for your house. Now, Cabana Wife and I, we found that to be very helpful because we go down to DT McCall. We went to one of their stores, and we have different ideas about what we wanted in furniture and a sofa set, for example. But because there's such a big selection, we very quickly came to an agreement on something that we both liked. If you don't have the selection, sometimes it's hard to do something like that. DT McCall's, a family-run company, more than 100 years old. You don't make it 100 years plus without treating people right, and I think you'll find that they'll treat you honestly and forthrightly, giving you an honest price when they quote you something. Whenever possible, DT McCall's sells products that are made and manufactured in the state of Tennessee. England furniture is made not in England, but in Tennessee. There's a mattress line exclusive to DT McCall's, also made in Tennessee. 5 convenient locations, a big selection of anything you might want for your house. Find out more by going to their website, dtmccalls.com.
It's 4 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Right now, 77 degrees in Nashville. Another balmy day, summer-like temps right now in February. Expecting some possible showers here tonight and possible severe thunderstorms tomorrow and showers the rest of the week as well. So enjoy the sun while it's out. Weather and traffic coming up just a few minutes. The Supreme Court heard oral arguments about President Biden's student loan forgiveness plan today. 6 Republican-led states are suing to block it. Here's Ike Kajaji.
It was one of President Biden's campaign promises, but a group of Republican-led states feel the administration's plan to cancel federal student loan debt for more than 40 million Americans is expensive, unfair, and an abuse of executive power. On the Senate floor, Majority Leader Chuck Schumer speaking in support of the program, saying it isn't a handout.
90% of the relief going to out-of-school borrowers will go to those earning less than $75,000 a year. This is critical relief to working and middle-class families.
And right now, it looks like that forgiveness plan will get blocked. Here in Tennessee with a crime story, Channel 4 says that a former Perry County deputy, 31-year-old Jonathan Kelly, was arrested for allegedly raping a woman during a traffic stop. This investigation began a couple years ago, December of 2021. Agents found Kelly told the woman that she would not be charged if she did have sex with him. Last week, the Perry County grand jury returned indictments against Kelly. He was booked in the Perry County jail yesterday on a $65,000 bond. And the FAA says there's been another close call on a runway, this one last night in Boston Logan Airport. The FAA says a Learjet took off without clearance as a JetBlue flight was landing on an intersecting runway. Alex Stone.
In air traffic control recordings, the pilots of the Learjet can be heard being told to hold short of the runway, to wait there.
Taxi via Bravo, Echo, hold short of runway 40.
The audio from live ATC, but the FAA says those pilots continued onto the runway and took off without clearance, rolling down a runway intersecting the one at JetBlue. Embraer 190 did have clearance to be on. As it was landing, a controller telling JetBlue to go around.
Runway heading up to, we're sitting on the altitude.
The FAA is describing it as a close call and says it's investigating.
Over at the Lone Star State, a gun reform rally today at the Texas State Capitol in Austin. Among the speakers, a 10-year-old survivor of the mass shooting at Robb Elementary in Uvalde last May. Fourth grader Caitlin Gonzalez lost two of her friends that day.
I remember hearing my best friend's screams, and I remember hugging her that morning. I hugged her and Eliana at the awards ceremony, told her I would call her after school. I never got to that call, and I was watching the news. I saw that Eliana was missing. I texted Jackie, Eliana's missing, are you okay? The next day I got the news from my mom.
Gonzalez's mother says her daughter's been diagnosed with PTSD, and Uvalde survivors joining state officials and gun control advocates at the rally are calling on lawmakers to address the gun violence epidemic in the nation. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Well, good afternoon. It's 7 minutes past the hour, 4 o'clock. I am Brian Wilson, well-known bootlicker, apparently, I'm told. I don't know. Well, I mean, people are mad at me about that license plate reader story. I can't take Brian seriously anymore. He believes in law and order, for God's sake. So, I don't know. Listen, let me just put a bow on this discussion about privacy. The person wrote in, and because apparently the people who were very angry did not take a moment to call in when I was willing to have an argument or a discussion with them. But this person said, well, it's the next thing you know, they'll be like the federal government will be sucking up all this information. Dude, private companies. We did stories on this when I was in D.C. Private companies were purchasing these license plate readers, putting them on rent cars, and driving around the Beltway in Washington, just sucking up license plate information for private purposes. And they wanted to do things like they would sell the information. It was available to be sold. You got somebody that you want to know about. You go to this private company. Hey, put this license plate into your system and tell me where you have seen this license plate. And that already happens. You have no privacy anymore on a public street. Really, the only place that you can expect to have privacy is inside your own home. Really, that's it. And even then, if you're not careful. With like, for example, I'm going to be talking about TikTok here in a moment. People say if you got TikTok on your phone, they can control your phone. So you don't even have privacy in your own home. The amount of data that is being downloaded on each individual is staggering. It's just unbelievable. If you wanted to know, what private companies know about you and the information they have gathered on you, because you know what? You give them permission to get this information every time you use Google. Every time, you use your cell phone. They're tracking where you are. Folks, I mean, we've lost that a long time ago. That ship has sailed. So to say that we are occasionally going to use this technology to take bad people off the street, I don't have a problem with it. I've gotten a couple of text messages from police officers say, we have already had big hits in Metro Davidson County because of this license plate reader program. We put some bad people away, and I love that. That's what that makes us all a little safer. But honestly, folks, if you're worried about license plate readers, you should be a lot more worried about the information that you voluntarily give to people on your phone. Or on the Google machine, or every time you do a search. You would not believe the information they have logged down on you. So it's not just the government; it's private enterprise. It's just the sort of the byproduct of the life we lead in America today. There are cameras everywhere. The information about you is everywhere, and anybody who wants to pay for it can get it. And what's really astonishing is that you gave them that permission. You did. You absolutely did. When you decided to use Google, when you decided to use Facebook, when you decided to use, any of these social media platforms. So, I have long ago come up with the opinion that, we don't have much privacy left except inside the sanctity of our own homes, if you're careful. All right. Speaking of all of this, the FBI director says that TikTok poses a national security threat, and he's extremely concerned. He told Congress this week that the Beijing could weaponize data collected through TikTok. During a House Homeland Security Committee hearing, Ray flagged the risk that the Chinese government could harness the video sharing app to influence users or control their devices. Wow. So he's very concerned about it. The White House has set a 30-day deadline to purge TikTok from all federal devices. If you've got TikTok on your kid's phone, you've got a spy device. You're worried about your privacy right there. Have a talk with Junior about TikTok and make sure it's not on his or her phone, okay? White House has issued a directive that gave all government agencies 30 days to eliminate the Chinese social media app TikTok, now banned by law from any U.S. government devices. Directive made by the Biden administration comes nearly a month after Senator Josh Hawley, who led the charge to pass legislation banning TikTok from government devices, demanded that Biden's Office of Management and Budget expedite the law's implementation. After the legislation passed last year, the administration had 60 days to enact the law, and it's starting to happen now. It's being, if you're in the military, if you're in the intelligence community, if you're in government. Here in Tennessee, I think we have the same thing, and in many other states around the country, TikTok has now been banned from government phones and anything that's connected to government. So, again, there's your privacy. There's your concern. It's a lot less sinister than you might thought. It's right there on your phone. And it's showing you funny dance videos of people dancing. But it's also spying on you. Real concern. That's a real concern right there. Okay, speaking of director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, there are a lot of questions to be asked about the FBI right now. And I will tell you that Christopher Wray has apparently sat down with Brett Baer of Fox News. And on Brett's show tonight, I guess in about 45 minutes or so, we'll hear a lot more about what happened. And there's a lot of things to ask the FBI. Why is the FBI, tipping the scales in political campaigns? This, that, and there's a ton of things. Why is the FBI not moving forward on, anything to do with the Hunter Biden laptop? I mean, there's a ton of questions. But earlier this afternoon, Brett did share one clip of the FBI director talking about COVID-19. We had a big announcement the other day, and that the Energy Department has now said that it joins the FBI in its belief that COVID came from a lab leak and not naturally occurring in the environment. So now the FBI and the Energy Department have that belief. Other agencies within government have a different belief, and a couple are still undecided about it all. And in asking that question, Baer got the director of the FBI to talk more about why they believe it, and I think this is probably the most he's ever spoken about this issue.
What is the determination by the FBI?
So, as you note, Brett, the FBI has for quite some time now assessed that the origins of the pandemic are most likely a potential lab incident in Wuhan. Let me step back for a second. The FBI has folks, agents, professionals, analysts, virologists, microbiologists, etc., who focus specifically on the dangers of biological threats, which include things like novel viruses like COVID, and the concerns that in the wrong hands, some bad guys, a hostile nation state, a terrorist, a criminal, the threats that those could pose. So here you're talking about a potential leak from a Chinese government-controlled lab that killed millions of Americans, and that's precisely what that capability was designed for. I should add that our work related to this continues, and there are not a whole lot of details I can share that aren't classified. I will just make the observation that the Chinese government, seems to me, has been doing its best to try to thwart and obfuscate the work here, the work that we're doing, the work that our U.S. government and close foreign partners are doing, and that's unfortunate for everybody.
Well, that's Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, talking about why the FBI believes, as the Energy Department does, that COVID-19 came from a lab leak and not from a naturally occurring thing that happened in nature. They have a what they consider to be a moderate sense of confidence about that feeling, about that decision that they've made. The Energy Department said their confidence in their assessment was low. I don't know. I'm dying to know what the Energy Department through the national labs came up with on that would give us some more information about why they came to that determination. And then do other agencies now take the information from the national laboratories and fold it into their thinking, and will they change their minds? Look, I think it's pretty clear. I mean, it's been to me, it's sort of just common sense. The virus started in Wuhan. It's a novel coronavirus. And you have, incidentally, in Wuhan, a laboratory, one of the few in the entire world that study novel coronaviruses. I mean, it just made sense. And by the way, the Chinese, when they first talked about this, said, well, it started in a wet market about 2 blocks from the Wuhan lab, virology lab. I mean, okay. It doesn't take a genius to put this together. Common sense tells you have a novel coronavirus that breaks out and causes people to get very sick. And it started a block and a half from the Wuhan virology lab that does research on those kinds of novel coronaviruses. I mean, come on. What are the odds that it's not from that lab? I don't think some elements of the government, I mean, the Energy Department coming up and saying that, pretty important. FBI saying that, I think is pretty important. But I think that in some areas of our government, there is a reluctance to tell the truth about this, because I think when all is said and done, you're going to find out that, it came out of that lab in Wuhan. We were actually supporting some research at that lab that is sort of in the area of gain of function. And there is a real possibility that the money that we sent to that lab resulted in research that broke out of that lab and became a virus that took over the world and killed 1 million people. And that's why I think there's a great reluctance to admit what really just makes a lot of common sense. So the FBI still standing by its opinion that this came from a lab in Wuhan, or that it came from a lab leak. That's what they're putting it. And the Energy Department will see whether other entities within our government are brave enough to tell the truth. It is 20 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on SuperTalk 99.7. Finding value is important all the time, especially these days. That's why I'm so confident in recommending Genesis Diamonds. Value is the core principle that Genesis was founded upon. The owner is a former diamond wholesaler who used to sell diamonds to upscale jewelry stores, but he hated how much they marked up the prices when he sold them to their customers, So he cut them out, started selling direct to the public at fair and honest prices that eliminated the traditionally fat retail profit margins. That direct importer advantage still applies at Genesis Diamonds. That's why they beat everyone else's prices on GIA-certified diamonds. It's more than just price. At Genesis, you get a higher quality diamond, the best cut for maximum brilliance, no commission salespeople, a personal relaxed shopping experience, free service for life on any purchase, and you also get the best rings money can buy. The names like Tacori and Verragio, many, many more. Best selection, highest quality, guaranteed best value, and a locally owned company with amazing international contacts. It's Genesis Diamonds. 2 locations, Green Hills and Cool Springs.
Another executive in FTX fessing up, and the money news, that and more coming up right here, 4:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, thank you, Mac Maury. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy. 25 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. A hearing up on Capitol Hill that talks about the real cost of not having a secure border. Southern border or northern border, apparently both of them now are being ignored, and people are coming across in great numbers. It's more than just people coming across. Of course, it's a real problem out there with apparently the drugs that are coming across, fentanyl, which is making its way into neighborhoods like yours and mine. You talk to police officers, and I do on a regular basis, and they'll tell you, not uncommon to have maybe 3 overdoses of fentanyl in a shift in Nashville. You think this is stuff that happens elsewhere. No, it happens. And 100,000 people are dying every year in America. 100,000 people are dying because of fentanyl overdoses. And today on Capitol Hill, legislators are gathered for a hearing, and they heard from Rebecca Kiesling. She lost her 18-year-old son, Kyler, 20-year-old son, Caleb, and there was also a 17-year-old girl who died at the same time. This is in 2020 after they consumed what they believed to be Percocet pills, but they turned out to be fentanyl. And her testimony is quite compelling and quite emotional.
If we had Chinese troops lining up along our southern border with weapons aimed at our people, with weapons of mass destruction aimed at our cities, you damn well know you would do something about it. We had a weather balloon from China going across our country. Nobody died, and everybody's freaking out about it. But 100,000 die every year, and nothing's being done. Not enough is being done. Numbers are going up, not down. And you talk about children being taken away from their parents. My children were taken away from me. 100,000 Americans every year are having their children, 200,000 because it's both parents, right? Are having their children taken away from them. This should not be politicized. It's not about race. Fentanyl doesn't care about race. You say, you talk about welcoming those crossing our border, seeking protection. You're welcoming drug dealers across our border. You're giving them protection. You're not protecting our children.
Boy, is that powerful or what? It makes you stop and think. They're talking about how, we don't want to see situations where people coming across the border are separated. The children are separated from their parents for a short time while you double check to make sure these kids actually belong to those parents. But consider this mom who lost her children. Now, look, we are allowing this to happen. It is a humanitarian crisis. You're putting people at risk. People are dying in the desert. They're dying trying to cross the river. That's part of it. They're coming here trying to get across. We are putting money every day that these people come across. Every time somebody comes across, that person has put money in the pocket of the cartels. You're making the cartels more powerful. And they're using these people. They're charging these people to come across and say, okay, you go over there and somebody on the other side will meet you from the ICE or from the Border Patrol. It's right over there. And they're collecting money from those people to point them to way to cross the river right here and get them to that point where they can do that. Right? Okay. And then when the Border Patrol and the ICE people are all tied up doing paperwork, they go upstream a mile or two, and the really bad stuff comes across, and there's nobody there to interdict them. The bad people, the bad drugs are coming across, and they're getting richer and richer and richer over this crisis, this chaos. And we don't seem to understand the importance of bringing security to our southern border. People are dying in your backyard. People are dying in your backyard every day, in your neighborhood, in your little community. And a lot of it is because of this fentanyl that's coming across the border. We need to shut down the borders. I don't know how many times I need to say this. It is a huge crisis of unbelievable proportions. And it's being carried out in the name of naked politics by the Democrats. That's all there is to it. It's 4:30 now on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN.
.430, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories right now. 75 degrees and sunny in Nashville. Expecting some possible rain tomorrow or tonight, and definitely tomorrow. Severe storms possible throughout the rest of the week. Weather forecast and a traffic report coming up just a few minutes. The feds are closing in on Sam Bankman-Fried's inner circle. Aaron Katersky tells us of a new guilty plea today in New York.
Nishad Singh, the former engineering director at FTX, agreed to plead guilty to a half-dozen criminal charges and cooperate with the government's ongoing investigation into the crypto exchange's collapse into a $32 billion bankruptcy. Singh is the third close associate of FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried to plead guilty and cooperate. Bankman-Fried has pleaded not guilty to criminal charges that accused him and the others of misappropriating $8 billion of customer and investor money. In exchange for Singh's cooperation, federal prosecutors agreed to recommend a sentence below the 75-year maximum.
And over to the money news. Here's Daria Albinger letting us know what happened today on Wall Street.
Stocks end a volatile February with some losses. The Dow fell 239 points. The Nasdaq went negative at the bell, closing down 11, and the S&P gave up 12. For a few weeks in late January and early February, the economy seemed to reach that rare sweet spot. Inflation was slowing steadily, while growth and hiring remained strong despite rising interest rates. Then something went wrong. Inflation surged again, and along with it, fear that the Fed could have to raise interest rates so high it could trigger a recession. Economists say all that uncertainty creates volatility, which could be the norm for a while. The Commerce Department's opening the application process for computer chip makers to access $39 billion in government support to build new factories and expand production. Companies that want the money must show, among other things, how they plan to develop a local workforce.
And that's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Let me tell you about the Wellness Institute of Nashville. I was down there today going through my non-surgical spinal decompression. I'm telling you, it really has helped me. A little something on the neck, a little something in the lower back. And I've been down there enough that I feel like now I'm going to go into the maintenance mode. But I'm telling you, it helped me. And it can help you if you have pain in your neck, leg, back, or arms. Listen, what you need to do is you need to call Dr. Kevin Mitchell at 615-246-5009. Set up an appointment. Go in there, and he'll go over everything. $23 for your first consult. You'll get an exam, consultation, x-rays if needed, and he'll suggest a course of action for you. If it's non-surgical spinal decompression, you should know that in the month of March, which starts tomorrow, it's all going to be half price. Your non-surgical spinal decompression is half price. That's right. no surgery, no injections, no addictive painkillers, and save a little money in the process. That's what you get with Dr. Kevin Mitchell. He's my doctor. He'll be your doctor. You should also get to know Dr. Ashley, who's the Chief Clinical Excellence in Holistic Healing. Listen, so much to like about the Wellness Institute of Nashville. I'm a big fan of the place. I think you will be too. Learn more by going to their website, painisbad.com.
Hey everybody, I'm Paul Winkler. The financial world can be full of landmines for investors. On the one hand, investment firms and the financial community will often overcomplicate the financial planning process to confuse investors. As one guy who used to work a big investment firm once told me, if an investor thinks that they're over their head, they'll blindly trust you. And it's easier to sell to them. I'm glad I'm away from that. On the other hand, many people oversimplify investing to the detriment of investors. Just having a little knowledge can be really dangerous. The idea there is the same. It's just a different way of selling things. At Paul Winkler Inc., we like working alongside our clients with an education guidance approach. I believe that there's confidence that comes with knowing what you're doing and why. We abide by the very highest level of fiduciary care, and we use the most sophisticated financial planning tools out there. And every one of our offices is run by a degreed planner with over 20 years experience. No kids fresh out of college. If that sounds like a winning formula, set up a free 15-minute phone call to learn more. Go to paulwinkler.com or call 615-851-1950. You can do this.
.38 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on SuperTalk 99.7. I am your friend and radio buddy. Thank you for joining the drive on this, the last day of February, Tuesday the 28th. Yeah, this is not a leap year. No, it's the last day. March comes in tomorrow, like a lion, they tell me. Joining us on the Newsmaker hotline right now is Laura Morgan, who's program director at an organization called Do No Harm, that authored a recent report about what we have here in many of the medical institutions that we all go to, places you go for medical care, the hospitals, the doctors, the institutions that you go to protect your health, have apparently been infiltrated with a bunch of different woke ideologies. And I read the report and I thought, this is something we need to dig into just a little deeper. So I've asked Laura to join us on the phone. Laura, thank you for joining us.
Hello, Brian. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right. So tell me about this report that you came up with and what you found with regard to something known, and we're hearing this a lot now, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion ideology that is now permeating all parts of the medical community in our area.
Sure, and I'm sure your listeners are familiar with those terms and that those abbreviations of DEI, and those terms don't sound so bad on their own, but when they're combined into the diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda, then it really puts more of a an ideological spin onto medicine, which really should be looking at people as individuals and meeting their needs as individuals rather than trying to put them into groups. And this has unfortunately infiltrated the medical schools and institutions there in Tennessee.
And so tell me what the impact of that is.
Well, patients want to know that when they go to the doctor, that their doctor has been trained on how to recognize and take care of their medical problem. I'm an old ER nurse, and I've never had one of my patients come in and insist that I tell him or her about my implicit biases that I may have against the patient. They want to have their medical problem taken care of. And so when the medical schools are putting the DEI into the curriculum, then something else has to get pushed out. And we've even had some medical students contact us and say things like, I've had more classes in DEI than I've had on kidney function. And that's just not a good thing to filter down to the patient level.
Given the fact that you have a limited amount of time to teach people when they're becoming doctors or medical professionals, anything that you take away from the actual instruction really does have an impact. And then are you finding that many of these institutions are trying to push people through the system because of gender or because of race rather than the actual qualifications that they might have? Because that would be, to me, a big concern if you're pushing people through through the pipeline because of the skin color and not their qualifications.
That's true, Brian, and it can even start on the front end because there are institutions, in Tennessee included, that for applicants to medical school, which is a pretty competitive thing to try to do, getting into medical school, that they are asking questions of applicants to help gauge how accepting they may be of DEI and these kind of ideologies. And yes, the things are pushing past race into gender ideology and other things that just really don't have anything to do with training a good doctor. And students at many schools are being encouraged to take part in things like social justice activities and taking classes that are not related to what they need to know to take care of their future patients.
If I go to the doctor, I want to know that my doctor is qualified. I want to know that my doctor's had good training. I want to know that my doctor was chosen for me because they have demonstrated excellence in their field of study or their field of expertise. I don't really care about their wokeness. I don't care about how they look at the world. I just want them to make sure that they know what they're talking about with regard to my whatever it is that I'm in there getting looked at. It's happening everywhere. In corporations now, in the corporate environment, they call it ESG. In education, we've all heard them talk about CRT. But in many institutions and many corporations now, the big push is for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And like you say, those words sound nice, but it's an ideology. It's a woke ideology that's being pushed, down people's throats and taking them away from their actual studies. Do I have it about right?
You have it right. And by the time students get to medical school, they've already had several years of indoctrination at the college level. And when you put these kind of ideologies into healthcare, then you're really skipping over the complex things that make patients unique individuals that, we're not all going to be able to have the same outcome. And I've never had a coworker who's ever said, I think I really am systemically racist and I need to learn about anti-racism and white privilege. It's just got no place in medical education, and we really need to push back on this.
Is this what happened at Vandy with their gender reassignment program?
I am not as familiar with the gender reassignment program at Vanderbilt, but they do have a strategic commitment to achieve health equity and eliminate structural racism. They want to establish racial equity in all of their endeavors, and they say that equity, diversity, and inclusion are inseparable from institutional excellence. And so that is something that is just not what is primarily the goal of medical education.
I'm reading from the report and a piece that was done on the Tennessee Star. It's worth your time and effort to read this. At the University of Tennessee Health Science Center, College of Medicine, the report is that the pass-fail grades and virtual coursework are accepted during COVID-19 pandemic, and members of the UTHSC College of Medicine and Admissions Committee are instructed to give additional consideration to applicants from underrepresented groups. Does that mean that people who are eminently qualified do not get the opportunity to get the kind of training that they need to go forward, because they are making sure that a certain number of people who maybe did not do as well in school, whose grades are not as good, are getting the opportunity simply because of the color of their skin or their gender or their sexual orientation?
Yes, they are. That's the type of additional consideration that members of admissions committees are being asked to give to applicants from underrepresented groups. And the University of Tennessee Health Science Center also offers scholarships in the amount up to $10,000 that are given preferentially to students from diverse backgrounds. And Do No Harm did file a federal civil rights complaint against the College of Medicine for that.
Well, how do people who don't want this to be the case at the institution that they go to for their medical care, how can they push back against this? What can the average person do?
Do No Harm exists to push back on this, and we're an organization that's made up of healthcare professionals and members of the public who want to see this being taken out of their medical schools, and these may even be their alma maters that are asking them for donations. And so your listeners can go to donoharmmedicine.org and look at the work that we're doing. They can become members and even contact us with any concerns that they have that they've seen in their area.
All right, Laura Morgan, I'm so glad we spent this time together because I wanted to get more information about your study here, and it raises a lot of questions. Thank you so much for joining us here.
I appreciate you having me. It was fun.
All right, thank you. This is the thing that I'm a little concerned about, is that we are now pushing these ideologies. And look, I mean, I don't have a problem with diversity if people are qualified. I don't have a problem with including people if they're qualified. It's this whole idea of equity that sort of just really grates on me a little bit because it sounds like equality. I'm all in favor of equality. I want everybody to have the same opportunity. But if we're making decisions on things like who's going to become a doctor, and we're cutting corners in order that, certain people who may not have had good grades or may not have done the study or may not have had, their nose to the grindstone, are given opportunities simply because, well, they have the right skin color or they check a box somewhere, then aren't we shorting ourselves? Aren't we putting people through the pipeline who really are not going to be the best and the brightest? Don't we want the best and the brightest to be in our hospitals? Don't we want the best and our brightest to be flying our planes? Don't we want the best and the brightest to be, protecting us in our public health arena? It seems to me we ought to be making decisions based on who is most qualified, period. That's what we ought to be making decisions on. And by pushing people through who have not done the work or have not completed the work, or for some reason their work is lacking, doesn't seem to be in our best interest, especially in places like hospitals. especially in areas like public safety, especially in areas like, the things that we do every day, like you get on a plane. Do you want the best pilots, or do you want the ones that check the box flying your plane? I mean, I think it's a fair question. And again, it's easy to say, Wilson, well, you're just an old racist. No, I just believe in taking people who worked hard and made the right decisions with their life and have earned the opportunity. I believe in giving those people the opportunity. I really do. And apparently that's just becoming more and more a quaint idea as more and more we're picking up this idea of DEI, ESG, and CRT, and EIEIO. I'm telling you, it just goes on and on and on. It's an alphabet soup of people, and at the end of the day, it's a woke ideology that I find myself in disagreement with. And I think a lot of people are asking the question, why are we doing this? Does this really make sense? Especially in areas where lives are on the line. 51 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. Let me tell you about Dr. Stephen Poss. He's my doctor. He could be your doctor, too. Question, do you sometimes wake yourself up with your own snoring? Is your sleeping partner giving you the sharp elbow in the middle of the night? Don't you want to do something about that? Why don't you set up an appointment with Dr. Stephen Poss at the Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solutions Clinic, 2 locations for your convenience, in Brentwood and in Murfreesboro. He can make a customized FDA-approved mouthpiece, proven effective in treating mild to moderate cases of sleep apnea. Set up an appointment with Dr. Poss and find out if this approach will work for you like it worked for me. Julie put it this way, my husband got his mouthpiece. He basically stopped snoring at night. Our bedroom is much quieter. I'm sleeping so much better. He's sleeping better. It's a win-win for us. So start getting a good night's sleep. Feel more energized during the day. Contact the Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solutions Clinic at your earliest convenience to set up an appointment with Dr. Poss. 615-850-8445. Learn more at drposs.com.
5 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 73 degrees in Nashville. What was a beautiful day today may turn into a rainy night, and expecting some severe thunderstorms tomorrow and later on in the week. So that sun will go away and the clouds will be here to stay for the rest of the week. Weather report and traffic coming up in just a few minutes. President Biden launched a preemptive strike against congressional Republicans today, claiming they're set to cut health spending in the next budget. Andy Field.
For weeks now, the president sounded the alarm about what he says will be Republican spending cut demands.
If mega Republicans try to take away people's health care by gutting Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act, I will stop them.
Some Republicans have made those proposals, but the party still has not released its actual budget cut plan they say they'll need in order to raise the debt ceiling this summer.
And many Republican lawmakers have continuously said that they don't plan to cut Medicaid. And in Tennessee, a new bill proposed would require bar owners to have Narcan accessible for customers. The legislation states that if that establishment sells more than $500,000 worth of alcohol a year, then they would have to keep that Narcan handy. The owners would also have to pay for it. And then another legislation in Tennessee, another possible bill here, this one would allow cash to be accepted at businesses where payment is required on site. So places like a parking lot with a QR code, or when credit and debit cards machines fail, you can use cash. And this bill would also give customers the option to pay by check or even later mail in a form of payment. It would basically allow these users to leave the property without paying right there and right then. The bill passed the House this week, 75-13. And now to a crime story in Music City. Detectives working to identify the person who shot a man with an 8-year-old passenger in his car.
It's all on surveillance video. Metro Police say on February 20th, around 8 o'clock in the evening, the man with the kid in the car was pumping gas at the Citgo on Dickerson Pike. The suspect, holding 2 handguns, gets out of a black Dodge Charger. Words are exchanged. Then they get back in their vehicles. Well, they start shooting at each other as they speed out of the parking lot. They do it again minutes later on Centerdale Lane. The man with the 8-year-old in the car was rushed to the hospital with a non-life-threatening bullet wound in the leg. Anyone with information is asked to call Crime Stoppers and become instantly eligible for a cash reward. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
And staying in Nashville, now to the airport with another crime story. Canine Officer Havoc back at it again. The good boy seized around 11 pounds of fentanyl in the form of blue pills at the airport yesterday morning. The man had an Alabama driver's license. He was identified as 22-year-old Michael Chandler. He claimed that he must have just picked up the wrong bag. Well, surveillance footage showed that he was never on a flight. He just showed up to pick up that luggage. He's been charged and is now in custody on a $150,000 bond. And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
It's 7 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. I'm going to call it afternoon. I feel like it's afternoon still. You know, we got plenty of sunshine, so it's 5:07. Good afternoon. I'm Brian Wilson. You're listening to The Drive, where we drive home a few salient points. We drive you home safely, and we try to drive the liberals as crazy as we possibly can. So glad that you're with us. The Supreme Court met today to take a look at President Biden's plan to do away with student debts to the tune of $500 billion. It's a lot of money. And as I have said from day one, I don't think he has the authority to do that. I mean, you know who else doesn't think he has the authority to do that? Well, at one point, Nancy Pelosi believed that.
People think that the President of the United States has the power for debt forgiveness. He does not. He can postpone, he can delay, but he does not have that power. That has to be an act of Congress.
And Biden himself is so unaware of what's going on. His memory is so failing him that he actually believes that he did go to Congress. I'm not making this up. He did it by executive order. He simply wrote down, I'm going to forgive this debt. Nobody knows where he gets that authority, but when he was talking about it one time, he talked as if he went to Congress.
Secondly, if you don't have one of those loans, you just get 10,000 written off. It's passed. I got it passed by a vote or two.
What? That last part, what did he say?
It's passed. I got it passed by a vote or two.
He never went to Congress for this. I don't know what he's talking about. The man has lost his mind. Lost his mind. Listen. It was always, I think, from the very beginning, I honestly believe this with every fiber of my being. I think that the key players in the Biden administration said we're gonna make a promise during the campaign to help kids with their student loan debt, and that will get them all jazzed up. They're going to vote for us in the main election, and they did. And then when they became a little disenchanted during the 2 years between the presidential election and the midterm elections, that nothing had happened, he just simply said, oh, yeah, no, we're doing that. We're doing that. I'm doing it through the power invested in me as president of the United States by no one. I'm gonna do away with $10,000 of your student loan debt, and in some cases, 20. And nobody seemed to understand, well, how do you have the authority to do that? And so, people who thought he was out of line have taken him to court, and the arguments have begun. Well, this morning, even before the arguments began, up on Capitol Hill, Chuck Schumer was out there talking about those mean old Republicans. They're trying to take away something that we promised to you. This is what they're always going to do. If it turns out that the Supreme Court knocks this down, as I think they will, their argument is going to simply be, well, we tried. It's those Republicans. What can we do?
Republicans talk a big game about helping working people. But today's case before the Supreme Court, pushed by Republican office holders who oppose the president's plan, is a slap in the face of working Americans across the country.
No, it's a slap in the face is what it is. Well, I'm not sure I can agree with that. You know what I think is a slap in the face? It's a slap in the face of people who work hard every day. That maybe people, came out of high school and they decided, I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to make a good living for my family or in my life by becoming a tradesman. I'm going to learn a trade. I don't know if you've paid a plumber lately, but I'm telling you, they make pretty good money. Electricians, they do all right. So you can find a good trade, find a good job, and still make a good living. Why should you then pay the debt that somebody else incurred when you chose not to go to college? Why should people who paid their college loans back, why should they pay for somebody else, who went up and ran up a bill? Why is it my responsibility to pay off your debt is the question. I think, if you want to say what's a slap to working people, Chucky, I would say there's a lot of people who look at this and say, this is not right at all. I mean, maybe you chose to go to college, maybe you chose not to. I mean, I'm feeling pretty stupid, actually, because I didn't take out any loans for my kid. I paid for my kid to go to college. I saved for my kid to go to college. I got me a 529 plan. I got me a savings account, and I started putting money in it. And as it turns out, my daughter, I don't think she have to ever go for a loan. It's going to all be covered. It looks that way. It looks pretty good right now. So why should I be paying off somebody else's debt? Why should money be taken from me and given to somebody else? Because last time I checked, when you apply for a loan, the expectation of a loan is you're borrowing money that you're going to pay back. Come on. Give me a break. So this goes before the High Court today. Here is the Solicitor General starting to make an argument, and Neil Gorsuch, a conservative member, one of the 6 conservative members of the High Court, sort of cut her off.
There are always going to be the cost to the government of offering that benefit to borrowers.
Again,
but
not just the cost to the government. I'm sorry to interrupt, but what I think they argue that is missing is cost to other persons in terms of fairness, for example. People who've paid their loans, people who don't have planned their lives around not seeking loans, and people who are not eligible for loans in the first place, and that $500 billion is being diverted to one group of favored persons over others.
That's right. Biden is picking winners and losers. People who took out the loans, who've decided that, it's hard to pay loans back. Yeah, well, get ready for life, buddy. This is what life is all about. Paying off your debts. Working hard and paying off your debt. And who gave Joe Biden the right to take $500 billion, $500 billion, and make a decision about, we are going to pay yours off and we're going to pay yours off. So sorry that you already paid yours back. You're not eligible for this. So sorry for you, who decided not to take out any loans. You're not eligible for any of this. We're just going to, people who made bad decisions and decided, it's hard. It's hard to take out a loan and pay it back. We're going to take care of you. What a bunch of... I almost said it. It tells me, this makes me so angry. What a bonehead I was. Imagine if I had just, just incur the debt, and don't worry, somewhere down the path, the government will come in here and take care of it for you. Oh, I feel pretty stupid. Here is the Chief Justice of the United States.
Casual observers would say, if you're going to give up that much amount of money, if you're going to affect the obligations of that many Americans on a subject that's of great controversy, they would think that's something for Congress to act on.
Yeah, I think it is something that Congress could act on. In fact, that most everybody in the world thinks that. And I honestly do not believe that anybody in the Biden administration thought they were going to get away with this. I think they realized in advance of the midterm elections that they were hurting with young voters, and they needed to do something to shore up the young vote. And so they made this outlandish promise, full well knowing it would never withstand constitutional scrutiny. But we'll tell them that we're gonna give them this money, and then they'll come and they'll vote for us in the midterms, which they did. And then afterwards, if it turns out that the Supreme Court, says we can't do that, then we'll just turn to them and say, oh, man, we wanted to do this nice thing for you, but, those mean old conservatives just wouldn't let us. Whatever happened in America to the idea of if you take out a loan, you pay it back? Whatever happened to the idea in America that that you should not take out a loan that you do not have the ability to repay? And why are we rewarding people who've made bad decisions about that, while we're completely turning our back on Americans who did it the right way without having to take out any loans? Or turn our back on Americans who may have chosen a different path, and now we're going to charge them taxes that are going to turn around and pay somebody else's debt off. It's just, there's no way this is right. There's no way this is legal. There is no way this is constitutional. From Reuters, conservative U.S. Supreme Court justices on Tuesday signaled skepticism over the legality of President Joe Biden's plan to cancel, they put it at $430 billion in student debt for about 40 million borrowers, with the fate of his policy that fulfilled a campaign promises hanging in the balance. The 9 justices heard arguments in the Biden administration's appeal of 2 lower court rulings blocking the policy that he announced last August, in legal challenges brought by 6 conservative-leaning states and 2 individual student loan borrowers opposed to the plan's eligibility requirements. The arguments continued for 4 hours today. They were originally scheduled for 2. They went for 4 hours. Roberts questioned whether the scale of the debt relief could be considered a mere modification of an existing student loan program. That's a hell of a modification. Liberal Justice Sonia Sotomayor noted the high dollar amount is at issue. How do you deal with that? Seems to favor the argument that this is a major question. Question by Alito about whether a member of Congress would consider this policy a major question. The arguments of those from the Solicitor General's office said, of course, we acknowledge that this is an economically significant action. I think that can't possibly be the sole measure for triggering application of the major question doctrine, which is a legal doctrine that may be at play here. Here's another story. This is from thehill.com. The Supreme Court's conservative justices cast doubt on President Biden's student debt forgiveness plan during an oral argument on Tuesday in the first of 2 challenges to the administration's program. The justices appeared skeptical that Congress gave clear enough authorization for the Biden administration to forgive billions of dollars in student debt. Conservative Justice Amy Coney Barrett joined the court's 3 liberals in questioning whether a group of Republican-led states had legal standing. There are some issues of legal standing to challenge the Biden plan. The administration has tied the plan, which forgives up to $20,000 in relief for qualifying borrowers, to the national emergency established during the pandemic. U.S. Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar, representing the administration, cited the Higher Education Relief Opportunity for Students, or HEROES Act, which was passed in the 9/11 Terror Act to aid Iraq and Afghanistan veterans. Man, it seems like they're on a thin legal read there. Doesn't seem like there's a whole lot there. I think, well, let me just share one other thing. I love this. During Supreme Court oral arguments over the Biden administration's $400 billion student relief plan, Chief Justice John Roberts referred to the Trump administration acting on its own to cancel the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, saying we blocked that effort in 2020. This case reminds me of one we had a few years ago, where the administration tried acting on its own to cancel the Dreamers program, and we blocked that effort, said Roberts, speaking to the Justice Department's Solicitor General. This was a 5-4 decision written by him in which he sided with the liberal justices against the Trump administration's effort to end DACA. His point is, you can't do some things without going to Congress. I know it's hard to go to Congress. It's hard to get consensus, but that doesn't mean you get, as president of the United States, that you're an emperor. There are 3 co-equal branches of government here. And thank goodness for the high court being the one that decides the balls and the strikes when there's a difference of opinion between the legislative branch and the executive branch. So I don't think this is going to withstand constitutional scrutiny. We'll watch it. Ruling coming sometime in June. Looks like the 6-3 court is going to give the Biden administration some bad news in this regard. But I think they knew it was going to come anyway. Just saying. It's 21 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. All right, an unsealed driveway will crack, but yearly sealing can be very expensive. I mean, think about it, $1,200 for 600 square feet of concrete. If you stretch that out over about 10 years and you figure that, it's going to cost a little more each year as prices go up, you're probably talking about $15,000. Many homeowners report paying the same for a superior seal that lasts a lifetime and is backed by a 25-year manufacturer warranty. It's called EverSeal. You can spend the weekends cleaning your deck or driveway or home and then watch the weather to find the perfect time to apply some protector on a surface that will be gone within a few years anyway. Or the chore these days is to find someone honest and trustworthy to come out and do these things for you year after year. There's got to be a better solution. Well, that's EverSeal. Their process starts by deep cleaning all the way through your wood or concrete to bring it back to look as new as it'll ever look. And then with their patented seal, they apply it. It will absorb all the way through and become a permanent part of your wood or concrete to prevent any further deterioration for the next, are you ready? 35 years. It's got a 25-year manufacturer warranty. Does this sound like something you'd be interested in? Well, why don't you reach out to the folks at EverSeal? Now here, I'm going to give them a call. It's 1-844-EVER-USA. 1-844-EVER-USA. If you want to learn more about all the things this product can do and study the science behind it, just go to ever-seal.com. That's ever-seal.com.
President Biden in Virginia Beach talking about health care, a huge house fire in Franklin today, and some possible legislation in the volunteer state. All that more coming up. 5:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 26 and a half minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk. Tuesday, the last day of February. And I don't know. I don't know a lot about trees. But I think that the trees that I have in front of my house may be Bradford pears.
Oh, the dreaded Bradford pear.
Well, I mean, they're flowery trees.
Yeah. Do they smell bad?
Yeah, I think maybe they do.
Yeah, that's Bradford pear.
That's a Bradford pear.
Oh, those are beautiful.
But they're pretty.
But
Yeah,
they're hated amongst, outdoor enthusiasts because they're an invasive sort of.
They're a trashy tree is what they are.
Yeah, and obviously, when you have like thunderstorms and stuff, high winds, they split very easily.
Yes, now I have seen that, yes.
Wow, some states are banning Bradford pear trees.
Yeah.
Wow. Crazy. Had no idea.
My buddies from Saturday mornings back years ago here on WTN, Josh and David on the At Home show, I think they headed up the Bradford Pear Eradication Society. They did not care for Bradford pears.
Well, I think that's what I'm not sure because I don't really know trees at all. I mean, I know a few trees, but I mean, I don't know what these trees are. But they're flowering, and I have all of the trees on my property. It's hard to believe it's the last day of February, and the trees are flowering, and the daffodils are up.
Yes,
and
seen a lot of those.
And now the question is, I mean, as long as we're talking about it, the question is, are you really going to be able to overcome the damage that was done by that really, really deep freeze?
Yeah,
I mean,
good question.
I've been walking around my property on a regular basis, examining the, all the shrubbery, and I think about half of it may have to be replaced. I mean, I think, there's some that's clearly going to come back. You can tell it's already trying to come back.
Yeah, I've got some of those
and
too.
there's some that just, it's dead. It's just gone.
I've got a couple of small little boxwood bushes that, they don't look too good.
No, they don't.
They're pretty much just sticks.
They say give it a little more time. They say go back into the shrubbery and a little deeper and sort of scratch it to see if it's green.
Yeah.
They say if it's green,
yeah,
then you trim back the dead stuff and it should come back. That's what I'm told. But I got some that just looks like it's dead. I don't know. It's I don't know but it's just weird that 28th day of February. What's the temperature right now?
It was like 73, I think.
It's like 70, yeah.
Weird.
And tomorrow it's going to be nearly 80.
It's crazy.
That's crazy.
Yep.
That is so crazy. So, we'll take it. And I'll try to figure out what these trees are. There's an app for that. You get an app.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You can just take a picture of it. It'll tell you what it is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I'll have that answer for you tomorrow if anybody cares. But I think they're pretty. But I didn't understand that I had. Now I'm feeling pretty bad that I have trash trees on my property.
Yeah. Go check them out. Yeah. You may have to get rid of them.
30 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk.
.5:30, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 73 degrees right now. It's beautiful in Nashville. Sunny as well. Not going to be that way as much tomorrow. Expecting some possible severe thunderstorms on and off throughout the rest of this week. Showers could hop in here tonight in the mid-state. Weather forecast, traffic report headed your way in just a few minutes. President Biden traveled to Virginia Beach today to deliver remarks on the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, and he went after congressional Republicans. Karen Travers.
President Biden says his administration is working to get more Americans more affordable health care and bring down medical costs so people can have some more breathing room. He went after Republicans in Congress, who the White House claims are targeting Obamacare and Medicare and Medicaid as part of their push to cut spending and balance the federal budget.
If mega Republicans try to take away people's health care by gutting Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act, I will stop them.
Democrats control the Senate, so it's unlikely under their watch that there would be any major dismantling of those programs.
And many Republican lawmakers over the past few weeks have continuously stated that they don't plan to cut Medicaid. Here in Tennessee, fire crews had to put out a large house fire in Franklin today in the Founders Point neighborhood. Channel 4's Danielle Jackson tells us the details.
Firefighters responded to this home on Lancelot Lane just before 1:15 this afternoon. We're told the homeowner drove up to the home and noticed it was on fire. Thankfully, no one was inside at the time. Heavy smoke and flames were coming from the second floor. Now, while they were working on this fire, we're told 3 firefighters had minor injuries while putting out this fire. 2 were taken to a local hospital, and the other firefighter was treated on the scene.
And the estimated damage to the house is $400,000. A new bill proposed in Tennessee would require bar owners to have Narcan accessible for customers only if your establishment spends over $500,000 a year on alcohol. Then that would require you to keep Narcan handy. If this bill's passed, the owners would also have to pay for it. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
You know, it's the weird time of year. Sometimes you need your air conditioning system. Like right now, I got my AC going. Sometimes you need your heater. Early in the morning, it's sort of cool. And you know, if you're struggling, if one of your systems is not working right, you should do what I would do. Call the folks over at Busy Bee HVAC and Plumbing. They will come over to your house. They'll buzz right over to your beehive, and they'll take care of it. You'll not find a better value on HVAC and plumbing replacement systems, and you can get 12 months same as cash if you qualify with approved credit. You probably want to become a member of a Beehive Club for as little as $99. You get 3 thorough maintenance services on your systems, 1 aimed at heating, 1 aimed at cooling, 1 aimed at plumbing. No overtime charges 24/7 and 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner. For satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 775-7833. That's 615-775-7833. Online at busybeehvac.com.
Hey everybody, I'm Paul Winkler. The financial world can be full of landmines for investors. On the one hand, investment firms and the financial community will often overcomplicate the financial planning process to confuse investors. As one guy who used to work a big investment firm once told me, if an investor thinks that they're over their head, they'll blindly trust you. And it's easier to sell to them. I'm glad I'm away from that. On the other hand, many people oversimplify investing to the detriment of investors. Just having a little knowledge can be really dangerous. The idea there is the same. It's just a different way of selling things. At Paul Winkler Inc., we like working alongside our clients with an education guidance approach. I believe that there's confidence that comes with knowing what you're doing and why. We abide by the very highest level of fiduciary care, and we use the most sophisticated financial planning tools out there. And every one of our offices is run by a degreed planner with over 20 years experience. No kids fresh out of college. If that sounds like a winning formula, set up a free 15-minute phone call to learn more. Go to paulwinkler.com or call 615-851-1950. You can do this.
It's 37 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on SuperTalk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy. Mac Morey in the newsroom. Chris Weber in the control room. Ladies and gentlemen, time for an update on the documents. You say, but Brian, what documents? You know, the documents that were found in a cardboard box right next to the Corvette.
Corvette. By the way, my Corvette's in the locked garage, okay? So it's not like they're sitting out on the street. How that could possibly happen, how anyone could be that irresponsible. What data was in there that may compromise sources and methods? Yep. And it's just totally irresponsible.
Well, we haven't really talked about the documents of late. And, you know, the problem is that it seems like all God's children have got classified documents. You know, Pence had them, and Trump had them, and Biden had them. And, I mean, who knows where else that they have been found. But we are now going to start finding out more about this. Congress wanted to know, all right, so tell us what kind of documents are we talking about? Which documents? Because we need to make an assessment to try to figure out if there's been any impact on national security. We can't do that without knowing exactly which documents you're talking about. And basically, in the Department of Justice and the intelligence agency told Congress to go pound sand. And Marco Rubio and Mark Warner, who are the chairman and ranking member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, said that is not going to stand. That's not an acceptable answer. And I mean they got their back up over it. And so now comes word that the Gang of Eight is being briefed. What is the Gang of Eight? Okay, there are 8 members of members of Congress who are considered the Gang of Eight, and they are allowed to see anything that is classified. They have the highest security clearances, and it includes the majority leader of the Senate, the minority leader of the Senate, the Speaker of the House, the minority leader, Mr. Jeffries, Hakeem Jeffries, and then, so that's 4, and then the chairman and ranking members of the 2 Senate and House Intelligence Committees. That makes 8. That's the Gang of 8. And so there's nothing they can't see. And now these stories are starting to show up. Officials from the Justice Department are expected to brief the Gang of 8 today on the agency's process for restricting Congress's access to classified documents found in the homes of President Joe Biden, former President Donald Trump, former Vice President Mike Pence, according to congressional sources. Members of the group aren't expected to learn anything about the documents found. Rather, officials will outline the process the DOJ will use to give lawmakers access to the materials. The briefing on Tuesday is a sign of progress as lawmakers on both sides of the aisle criticize the Department of Justice over its refusal to share information about the classified documents with members of Congress. Lawmakers have called for investigations into the matter and pressed the DOJ for more information on whether the classified materials pose national security concerns. Senators Mark Warner and Marco Rubio, the leaders of the Senate Intelligence Committee, first requested to see these documents, and they were told, basically, you know, as I said, to go pound sand. So this is a sign that things are starting to move. The Justice Department sent the lawmakers a letter at the end of January maintaining the existence of special counsel in both the Trump and Biden cases limit its ability to share information with Congress. And days later, the senators responded saying they had a legitimate need to provide oversight to the intelligence community, including addressing potential risks to national security arising from the mishandling of the classified information. It remains to be seen whether the limited nature of the briefing on Tuesday remains to be seen, will satisfy the demands of lawmakers as the matter drives a wedge between the Biden administration and Democratic lawmakers who have presented a rare united front with Republicans. I mean, on Capitol Hill, I will say this. I think that in the Senate Intelligence Committee, and Mark Warner, a Democrat, and Marco Rubio, a Republican, I think you have a real relationship there, and I think they have respect one for the other. And I think what they're looking at is, we're not going to be playing politics here. We just want to get to the bottom of what happened, and are there any documents that cause national security concerns? I think that they're adults, and that's my sense of it. I know a little bit about Warner, and a little bit about Rubio, and I think that they're grown-ups. And sometimes, in rare occasions, partisanship is set aside when there's something more important at play. And in this particular case, I think there is a legitimate concern about those who take national security seriously to find out exactly how this happened. Now, I'm coming to the conclusion that not much is going to happen here. That I think what you're going to find at the end of the day, both with Trump and with Biden and with Pence and whoever else ends up having, classified documents found among their papers, I think you're probably going to find that you really can't make a case against, like, Biden. You can't really make a case against Trump because they didn't pack the boxes. If there's something else at play here, then, maybe I'll have to change my assessment. But my thinking of this is that, it's pretty egregious, pretty sloppy, but I'm not sure that either of those two people could be held criminally liable for the things that happened when other people packed the boxes. I don't know. There are some compelling information that will come down the pike maybe at the later, but I think Biden walks. I think Trump walks. I think Pence walks. And I think that there'll be a blue ribbon panel appointed to find out how this all happened, and then that's the end of it. I don't think any charges will be brought unless there's something out there I don't understand, and that's entirely possible. But the fact that the Gang of Eight is now being briefed on this suggests to me that they are now moving forward on the documents investigation. Other news from the swamp. House GOP accuses Treasury of obstructing the investigation into Biden family business dealings. The House Oversight Committee accusing the Treasury Department of operating in bad faith as the GOP investigates the Biden family finances. House Republicans are seeking suspicious activity reports on unusual or high-dollar transactions from the president's family as it scrutinizes the business dealings of Joe Biden's son, Hunter. The reports are flagged by financial institutions to the Treasury Department and could provide insight into the GOP's years-long allegation that the Hunter Biden benefited from his father's holding political office. They're trying to get these financial documents that would help them follow the money. I mean, that's what they always say: follow the money, man, follow the money. You'll always come out learning what happened if you follow the money. You can't follow the money if the Treasury Department is blocking your access to key documents. So that continues to burble under, just under the surface. I am anxious to see whether or not these investigations are going to produce any fruit. I'm a little disappointed. I'm going to tell you about something that I learned today that disappoints me a great deal. I think you know how strongly I feel about the southern border situation. And I think that Mayorkas, Alejandro Mayorkas, who's the Secretary of Homeland Security, has acted egregiously and handcuffing the Border Patrol and ICE, not allowing them to do their job, stepping up in every way they can to make the borders porous, not secure. And he says, "Oh, we have operational control." That's unadulterated. You don't have operational control if fentanyl can come across the border in huge amounts. By the way, fentanyl, 4 pounds of it found at B&A. Just apparently 4 pounds of the stuff. You know how dangerous 4 pounds of fentanyl is? Can kill a lot of people. You think it doesn't come into our backyard? And it's 4 pounds at B&A. I think it was yesterday. But I think that this guy has acted egregiously. I think his actions have been antithetical to the national security concerns we have to have a secure border. I think that he's doing everything he can to thwart having a secure border because I think Democrats have decided it's to their political advantage to have loose borders. And people are dying for their political strategy of allowing people to come in who they think will eventually find a way to become citizens and vote Democrat. That's what I think it's all about. I do. And I think he's acted egregiously. I thought that they would go after him and try to impeach him. Story coming out today, quoting Matt Gaetz, they don't have the votes to bring up an impeachment charge against Alejandro Mayorkas. He's going to skate. Now, it doesn't mean that there won't be an investigation, but apparently they don't have what the votes they need to charge him and impeach him. And I think he committed impeachable offenses. I do. If I were a member of Congress, damn right I'd vote for that. But apparently Gaetz says they don't have the votes to go forward, and therefore the hope that Alejandro Mayorkas would be impeached has fizzled. Man, that's so disappointing. So disappointing. Just a little bit of news from the swamp that we have here. And it is now 49 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. All right, if you've been with us for a lot of years, you know that Eurofix has been in Middle Tennessee for some 24 years. If you need your European car worked on, you got to go to Eurofix. We've watched them grow. Well, I don't know about you. It's great to watch a hometown business take off. Well, the folks at Eurofix are very now proud to announce a 5th location for Eurofix now in Mount Juliet on Mount Juliet Road, right across from the Dairy Queen. Eurofix can serve you in Franklin, 100 Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now right there in Mount Juliet. Pretty cool getting to watch a small-town mechanic starting in a barn in the backyard of a single-wide trailer, grow to 5 locations, now repairing thousands of cars each month. At Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. Just call this number, 844-EUROFIX. That's 844-EUROFIX, or visit myEurofix.com and tell them that your friend and radio buddy, Brian Wilson, sent you.
President Biden still claiming that Republicans want to cut health spending, a big house fire in Franklin, and some momentum growing about some legislation that could help with depression and mental health in the state of Tennessee. That and more, 6 o'clock, Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
Just want to remind you, you can listen to The Drive, of course, on this quaint technology we call radio. You can go to our WTN app. You can watch us on SuperTalk TV, on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or the ever-popular Twitch. You can find today's show prep at yourfarb.com and find the link to Your Farb at 997WTN.com. All of those things are always working for you, and the Super Text line is always open at 615-737-9986. After the news with Mac Maury, one more exciting hour of The Drive. Stay with us, everyone. You know, when it comes to home repairs, many people are nervous because, they don't know what they don't know. Especially true with waterproofing and foundation repair. This is not your area of expertise, let's be honest. Could be something big that needs to be fixed. Could be something small that will become bigger over time if nothing is done. Or you might find out it's nothing at all. Bottom line is you need an expert who'll be honest with you, and you don't want to be sold something you don't need. That's where United Structural Systems can help out. 23,000 satisfied residential customers. Now, here's how it works. They'll come out and they'll look at your situation and they'll give you their best advice. If you decide to go forward, you don't put a penny down until the job is done and you're completely satisfied. Financing is available. You get lifetime warranties guaranteed for the life of the home. See, the idea with USS is to take the stress out of home repair. They guarantee their best at USS. Serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, and Northern Alabama online at USSTN.com. That's USSTN.com. Or call this number, 615-227-2275. That's 615-227-2275.
It's 6 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 74 degrees and sunny in Nashville. Got up near 80 today. Just been a balmy summer-like day in February. Expecting some showers possible tonight. And definitely into tomorrow and the rest of the week. And some chances for some severe storms. You can stay with SuperTalk for coverage on that throughout all of the week. Weather and traffic headed your way just a few minutes, starting with President Biden, who launched a preemptive strike against congressional Republicans today, claiming they're set to cut health spending in the next budget. Andy Field tells us Republicans have yet to present that spending plan.
Republicans repeatedly tried repealing Obamacare. President Biden telling a Virginia Beach crowd he and Democrats won't let them.
They want to eliminate a lot of health care coverage, those mega Republicans. Increase costs for millions of Americans.
But Republicans will soon insist on dramatic spending cuts before they agree on raising the national debt ceiling.
Here in Tennessee, a house fire today in the Founders Point neighborhood. Channel 4 Danielle Jackson tells us the details.
Firefighters responded to this home on Lancelot Lane just before 1:15 this afternoon. We're told the homeowner drove up to the home and noticed it was on fire. Thankfully, no one was inside at the time. Heavy smoke and flames were coming from the second floor. Now, while they were working on this fire, we're told 3 firefighters had minor injuries while putting out this fire. 2 were taken to a local hospital, and the other firefighter was treated on the scene.
And the estimated damage to that home in Franklin is $400,000. Right now in Tennessee, momentum is growing at the state capitol to do something to help young people who may be struggling with depression or other issues.
There is bipartisan support for a bill that puts mental health resources in front of teens and young adults. News Channel 5 says the bill adds life-saving contact information for suicide and crisis hotlines on every student ID card for public universities. Now, this information is already on IDs for students in grades 6 through 12. Recent data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention showed a majority of teenage girls surveyed, about 60%, reported feelings of persistent sadness and hopelessness. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
And back here in the volunteer state with a crime story, Channel 4 says that a former Perry County deputy, 31-year-old Jonathan Kelly, was arrested for allegedly raping a woman during a traffic stop. The investigation began back in December of 2021. Agents found Kelly told the woman that she would not be charged if she just had sex with him. Last week, the Perry County grand jury returned indictments against Kelly. He was booked into the Perry County Jail yesterday on a $65,000 bond. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's 7 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. Time for the fourth and final hour of the drive on this 28th day of February, last day of February. And it's hard to believe that it was like 75 degrees today. Just unbelievable. February 28th, temperatures in the 70s. I mean, beautiful day.
Yes, it was.
I washed the truck. I washed all of the winter off my truck.
Nice.
And there was a lot of it, and it needed it, and I was glad to get that done today. And just, is there anything better, really, than getting in a clean car?
Yeah, I love to keep mine relatively clean.
I try to, take good care of it, but, during the winter, it just gets hard, because you really can't find a nice stretch of good weather. And
you don't want to waste your time washing it, and then the roads are all salty again.
But I'm telling you, it just really, honestly, it feels good to get that sort of done and getting it cleaned out, and then change the oil, did all the good stuff.
Wow. All right.
There you go. Got a bunch of news here today. I have not seen this story anywhere else, but I think it's interesting, and I'm going to read it to you. It's one page. It's all I've got. And I think this, if this is truly what the U.S. Army Secretary believes, then there ought to be some more to this, and we ought to be asking some questions. Oh, really? I want to hear more of your opinion. You ready? The Army Secretary predicts that China will attack the U.S. homeland if a major war breaks out. Well, that's scary. U.S. Army Secretary Christine Wormuth predicted that if China got into a major war with the U.S., the communist-led country would attack the American homeland. The United States homeland would be at risk as well, with both kinetic attacks and non-kinetic attacks, whether it's cyber attacks on the power grid or pipelines. Wormuth said Monday at the American Enterprise Institute, a Washington, D.C.-based think tank. Officials go to these think tanks and give speeches all the time, and they get reported. But what she said here is, wow, that's big stuff. Kinetic means, you're talking about an attack like that where things explode. Kinetic attacks, that's like bombs and missiles and that kind of stuff. Non-kinetic attacks could be a cyber attack. It could be anything. But she says she believes the United States homeland, that the lower 48, Alaska and Hawaii, would be at risk from kinetic and non-kinetic attacks if we go to, into a major war with China. We always feel like we're sort of protected, even during the First and Second World Wars, we were protected by a couple of oceans. But, those oceans, doesn't take much to cross those oceans anymore. Kinetic military action is a euphemism for active warfare using lethal force. Non-kinetic action includes soft force such as diplomacy and cyberspace operations. Wormuth said the Chinese attacks would be used to lower U.S. morale. They're going to go after the will of the United States public, she said. They're going to try to erode support for a conflict. China-U.S. relations appear to be further deteriorating. That's true, amid recent concerns about the Chinese Communist Party spying over North America with a surveillance balloon and its possible military support of Russia in the war with Ukraine. And, left out of this article, I will add, are concerns about what might happen in Taiwan. We just put more military advisors in Taiwan to help the Taiwanese prepare for any attack that might be coming from the Chinese, which doesn't endear us to the Chinese at all. When I hear that the Army Secretary believes this, I don't doubt her. I think she's got the right bead on it. What I think is lost on many Americans right now is how delicate our relationships are with the major adversaries on the world stage. The Chinese are not happy with us right now. The Chinese balloon thing, I don't think was a big deal in the grand scheme of things, but I mean, there are questions to be answered for sure. But, okay, that's not something you go to war over. Taiwan might be. China and Russia ganging up on the United States is something that the United States should, prepare for. Because it seems that China and Russia are getting a lot closer these days. So, we are supporting Ukraine against Russia, and now China is helping, apparently, the thinking goes, helping Russia get the materials that it needs to continue fighting the war against in Ukraine. We're fighting basically a proxy war with Russia. And we have delicate negotiations over what would happen in the Straits of Taiwan if the Chinese truly decided to go into Taiwan and take over, which they practice every day. They do war games on that every single day. They fly jets in the direction of Taiwan, and then they veer off at the last second. One day they may not veer off. And it's on. Because we've said we'll support Taiwan. It's been very clear when asked about it. Joe Biden said, yep, we'll be there. What that means, I'm not real sure. So anyway, one-page story. I wanted to share it with you. I thought it was very, very interesting. And again, just a whole lot of scary. There was a major hearing today about the border crisis. And this was perhaps one of the most emotional things that I've seen happen on the public stage out of Washington in a long, long time. We are losing so many people in this country to fentanyl. I got a story here somewhere. See if I can find it. Yeah, here it is. Excuse me, I misstated this earlier. Alabama man found with 11 pounds of fentanyl at the Nashville International Airport. This according to WKRN. 11 pounds of fentanyl in his luggage. According to an arrest affidavit, officers with the Nashville International Airport Police Department approached 22-year-old Michael Chandler of Alabama and asked for consent to search his luggage after a canine detected an odor of fentanyl coming from the bag. Officers asked for Chandler's identification, discovered his name on the bag did not match the name he provided. Police searched the bag and found 11 pounds of blue M30 pills, which are consistent with counterfeit pills that are actually fentanyl. The pills are known to regularly cause overdose deaths, according to police. The affidavit said as officers searched the bag, Chandler said he didn't pack the luggage, must have picked up the wrong bag. Police later discovered Chandler never actually even flew into BNA. Chandler was arrested for possession with intent to distribute fentanyl, taken to the Metro Jail without incident, being held in lieu of a $150,000 bond, according to jail records. Fentanyl is coming to our town. 11 pounds. Do you understand how many people could be killed with 11 pounds of fentanyl? A lot. When a grain of this stuff is fatal. Well, on Capitol Hill, there was testimony today from a mother. Her name is Rebecca Kiesling, and she lost her 18-year-old son, Kyler, and 20-year-old son, Caleb, in July of 2020 after they consumed what they thought was a Percocet pill, turned out to be fentanyl. A 17-year-old girl also died in the same incident, but the individual who sold the fentanyl counter Percocet pill consumed them survived. And she's testifying because she says, look, we need to do something about this damn border situation. And she's right. Listen to the emotion of this mother and see if you find any kind of argument with what I think she's laying down exactly what needs to be said.
If we had Chinese troops lining up along our southern border with weapons aimed at our people, with weapons of mass destruction aimed at our cities, you damn well know you would do something about it. We had a weather balloon from China going across our country. Nobody died, and everybody's freaking out about it. But 100,000 die every year, and nothing's being done. Not enough is being done. Numbers are going up, not down. And you talk about children being taken away from their parents. My children were taken away from me. 100,000 Americans every year are having their children, 200,000 because it's both parents, right? Are having their children taken away from them. This should not be politicized. It's not about race. Fentanyl doesn't care about race. You talk about welcoming those crossing our border, seeking protection. You're welcoming drug dealers across our border. You're giving them protection. You're not protecting our children.
Well, your heart goes out, of course, to Rebecca Kiesling over her loss. But you know what? It just makes me angry. I just get so mad. I don't understand this at all. Think about it from this perspective. I think that the Biden administration has loosened the borders for political purposes. In order, they want as many people to come in here because I think down the pathway they believe we'll find a pathway to citizenship for these folks, and then they'll be able to vote Democrat. We're going to change the Democrat. I think it's raw, naked politics that are involved in their decision to keep the borders wide open. I really do. But every time that somebody comes across the border, they're being shown the way by a coyote across the river, somebody who works for the drug cartels. And every time a person comes across, somebody paid that coyote a lot of money to help them get there. Every time somebody comes across the border, you are enriching the cartels. And then, you know, what happens is a bunch of people come over in the morning. I mean, I've seen this happen, and people talk about it all the time. They come over in the morning, and the first group gets tied up with ICE and the Border Patrol because they're doing the paperwork, and the coyotes just go up the river, just a few miles, where there is no Border Patrol and there is no ICE because they're all busy handling paperwork. And that's where the really bad people come across. You probably pay more to be in the second batch than to be in the first batch. And that's where the drugs come across. And there's so much fentanyl coming across. And every time that happens, what are you doing? You're enriching the cartels. They get stronger. They get richer. And if your purpose of doing all this is because one day you want these people to be voters who will vote Democratic, isn't it kind of crass the risk that you're putting Americans in by strengthening the cartels and allowing the fentanyl to flow in and find its way to neighborhoods like you're in mine? 11 pounds at B&A. 11 pounds. That could kill a lot of people. It makes me angry. I just get absolutely livid as we learn more and more about what's happening. But if you think, you know, we're not impacted by that, then just read this story and think about what this 11 pounds could have done in our community had it not been interdicted. Good work. Good work once again at B&A. 21 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on SuperTalk 99.7. Beacon Capital Management has a message for you. Are you feeling anxious about the current pressure on the stock market, the high rate of inflation, looming tax increases, ongoing political concerns? Well, you're not alone. Now is the time to get a free retirement risk analysis from Beacon Capital Management. You'll walk away understanding exactly where you stand in current and potentially fluctuating market conditions. It will reveal your risk exposure, whether or not you're paying hidden fees, and help you uncover potential gaps in your plan that could cost you big when it comes to retirement. So if you've saved at least $250,000 for retirement, why don't you give Beacon a call for a free, no pressure, no obligation retirement risk analysis? Here's the number, 615-488-9303. Again, that's 615-488-9303. And as always, learn more about all the things they can do for you at Beacon by going to the website beaconcm.com. SuperTalk.com.
A gun reform rally in Uvalde sees some in Austin sees some survivors of the Uvalde shooting speaking at that rally, and then some money news. That and more, 6:30, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, I took up this conversation a little earlier and got a lot of people mad at me. But I think it's a good example. I've talked to a couple of police officers today at Metro Nashville who say that this LPR thing is starting to work for them in a big way. Metro Nashville Police Department turned on a license plate recognition cameras across Nashville. They solved the crime right away. 39 LPRs are up across Davidson County. And right off the bat on Monday, there was a 16-year-old alleged car thief that was arrested, now facing charges. One of the LPR cameras flagged a stolen license plate. They went to the teen's home to arrest the teen, and they found, are you ready? He had 17 different key fobs, according to police. That means that he had the key systems to 17 different cars and credit cards that belonged to at least 6 different people. So it would suggest that in getting this person, they are getting someone who has been active, according to the evidence, it seems to suggest, may have been active in other stolen cars. And then I heard from police officers say, "Oh yeah, we've already tagged several people because the tags got spotted by the LPRs, and we were able to get them off the street." People don't like them. I mean, there are a certain number of people who don't like these LPRs who think they're giving up some kind of privacy. I would just argue politely with you that you gave up, if you want to worry about privacy, then, turn off your cell phone. I mean, there is no privacy anymore except in the privacy of your own home, and even that can be invaded through the technology that you have. You give almost all of your information away freely by using Google or some other search engine, unless it's, what's it, Go Duck or Duck Go or what?
Go.
Duck Go, that's it, I'm sorry. I mean, you do. So this is something that I think there are fail-safe ways to make sure this stuff didn't get abused. People disagree with me about that, but I've done my research. You do your research and then come back to me and tell me what you think. But I think it's a good thing, and I'm glad that we're taking bad people off the streets. And as long as there's some oversight on this, and for better or for worse, there is oversight in Davidson County in the form of the Community Oversight Board. They don't like this idea. They're going to be watching it like a hawk, and I think that's okay. Nashville Police Department needs to prove that they're using it responsibly. And there's no problem with somebody asking questions about it. But it's starting to work in a significant way, according to the police officers I've spoken with here in the Nashville area. And I think every day you're going to start hearing stories. Bad person taken off the street, bad person taken off the street, bad person taken off the street. Crimes solved because of the license plate readers. I think there are safeguards. I know there are reasonable people out there who will think I'm a bonehead for saying this, but I like this technology. I think we're safer with this technology than without it. But we'll see how it all plays out. It's a little early. It's a 6-month test, and after 6 months, they're going to have to make the case that that we want to keep it, and those who are doing oversight of the police department will have the ability to reconsider the LPRs at that point. It is now 30 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN.
.30, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 69 degrees, turning into a rather clear night. A chance of some showers later on. Chance of severe thunderstorms tomorrow night. Weather and traffic coming up in just a few minutes. Starting in the Lone Star State, a gun reform rally today at the Texas State Capitol in Austin. Among those speakers, a 10-year-old survivor of the mass shooting at Robb Elementary in Uvalde last May. Fourth grader Caitlin Gonzalez lost 2 of her friends that day.
I remember hearing my best friend's screams, and I remember hugging her that morning. I hugged her and Eliana at the awards ceremony, told her I would call her after school. I never got to that call, and I was watching the news. I saw that Eliana was missing. I texted Jackie, Eliana's missing, are you okay? The next day I got the news from my mom.
Gonzalez's mother says her daughter's been diagnosed with PTSD. Uvalde survivors are joining state officials and gun control advocates at that rally, calling on lawmakers to address the gun violence epidemic in the nation. Over to the money news. Daria Albinger runs us through what happened today on Wall Street.
Stocks end a volatile February with some losses. The Dow fell 239 points. The Nasdaq went negative at the bell, closing down 11, and the S&P gave up 12. For a few weeks in late January and early February, the economy seemed to reach that rare sweet spot. Inflation was slowing steadily, while growth and hiring remained strong despite rising interest rates. Then something went wrong. Inflation surged again, and along with it, fear that the Fed could have to raise interest rates so high it could trigger a recession. Economists say all that uncertainty creates volatility, which could be the norm for a while. The Commerce Department's opening the application process for computer chip makers to access $39 billion in government support to build new factories and expand production. Companies that want the money must show, among other things, how they plan to develop a local workforce.
And that's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Let's talk about Sylvan Health, a personalized nutrition service covered by insurance. You see, nutrition can improve the way you feel. It can help you lose weight, manage health conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, all things that are directly related to the foods we eat. And this is where Sylvan Health comes in. That's Sylvan Health. Sylvan connects you with a registered dietitian to help put together a nutrition plan for you without forcing you to cut out all the foods you love. Your dietitian will provide tools such as meal plans, shopping lists, restaurant guides. A few small tweaks to your diet can go a very long way. Appointments are via video calls or over the phone, so there's no need to travel. And here's the best part. The service is covered by insurance. That's right, 90% of patients have zero out-of-pocket expenses. So schedule your appointment today. It's very easy. It starts with a phone call, 833-279-5826. Or visit sylvanhealth.com. Take that first step toward looking and feeling better, utilizing the power of great nutrition.
Hey everybody, I'm Paul Winkler. The financial world can be full of landmines for investors. On the one hand, investment firms and the financial community will often overcomplicate the financial planning process to confuse investors. As one guy who used to work a big investment firm once told me, if an investor thinks that they're over their head, they'll blindly trust you. And it's easier to sell to them. I'm glad I'm away from that. On the other hand, many people oversimplify investing to the detriment of investors. Just having a little knowledge can be really dangerous. The idea there is the same. It's just a different way of selling things. At Paul Winkler Inc., we like working alongside our clients with an education guidance approach. I believe that there's confidence that comes with knowing what you're doing and why. We abide by the very highest level of fiduciary care, and we use the most sophisticated financial planning tools out there. And every one of our offices is run by a degreed planner with over 20 years experience. No kids fresh out of college. If that sounds like a winning formula, set up a free 15-minute phone call to learn more. Go to paulwinkler.com or call 615-851-1950. You can do this.
$37 now past the hour of 6 o'clock on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. I am your friend and radio buddy. I'm excited to be here.
I can tell.
Yes, still got enthusiasm. And hour number 4, man. And, in a few minutes, we'll hand it over to Mark Levin, and he can carry on. I tell you, I saw Mark Levin last night make an appearance on Hannity. He got wound up.
He tends to do that, doesn't he?
Surprise, surprise, surprise. Mark Levin got wound up. But, I mean, I listen to him. I like Mark. I like Mark a lot. I know him a little. I've hung out with him some. And I find him to be a guy I really, really, really like. And not at all, by the way, when you meet him and you're around him in a sort of a social setting, not at all the way you might imagine him to be.
He's probably very low-key and quiet, isn't he?
Very, very low-key and quiet.
Yeah.
And the bunker, I'm told, is like a little room in his basement of his home. It's a finish. I mean, I thought it'd be like a concrete bunker with a table and one swinging light bulb, above it as he reads, but no, it's apparently it's a nice little room in his house, and he says that he does the show with his little dog curled up around his feet.
Oh,
he's a real animal lover, loves animals. So tells you a little bit about Mark. He's a pretty good dude. On this program in the last half hour, sometimes we feel like that we really have to just stop and consider that
oh boy,
the truth is out there. A very interesting article. And, look, I'm telling you, if there's ever a bigger story than this, I don't know what it is. Because whatever's going on out there, sooner or later, we're gonna find out, and it's gonna be like, can you imagine a bigger story when we finally figure out what these things are? This is from Politico magazine, and the article is called we have a real UFO problem, and it's not balloons. The balloons, everybody, I think a lot of people, when the balloons came out, they kind of conflated that what we were seeing here was somehow the same as what our Navy pilots are seeing and that kind of stuff. It's not at all. The balloons were a separate thing. There are still some legitimate questions about what our Navy and our military pilots have run into. And I love this story. It's written by Ryan Graves, a former Navy fighter pilot and engineer who chairs the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, UAP Integration and Outreach Committee. He's the founder of a new profit, Americans for Safe Aerospace. I'm just going to read some of this. On a clear, sunny day in April of 2014, 2 FA-18s took off for an air combat training mission just off the coast of Virginia. The jets, part of my Navy fighter squadron, climbed to an altitude of 12,000 feet and steered toward Warning Area W-72, an exclusive block of airspace 10 miles east of Virginia Beach. All traffic into the training area goes through a single GPS point at a set altitude. It's like a doorway into a massive room where military jets can operate without running into other aircraft. Just at the moment the two jets crossed the threshold, one of the pilots saw a dark gray cube inside a clear sphere, motionless against the wind, fixed directly at the entry point. The jets, only 100 feet apart, zipped past the object, one on each side. The pilots had come so dangerously close to something they couldn't identify that they terminated the training mission immediately and returned to base. I almost hit one of those damn things, the flight leader, still shaken by the incident, told us shortly after the pilot returned to the ready room. We all knew exactly what he meant. Those damn things had been plaguing us for the previous weeks. This happened. They were seeing these things on a regular basis. I joined the U.S. Navy in 2009, underwent years of rigorous training as a pilot. Specifically, we are trained to be expert observers in identifying aircraft with our sensors and our own eyes. It's our job to know what's in our operating area. That's why, in 2014, after upgrades were made to our radar system, our squadron made a startling discovery. There were unknown objects in our airspace. Initially, the objects were showing up on our newly upgraded radars, and we assumed they were ghosts in the machines, or software glitches. Then we began to correlate the radar tracks with multiple surveillance systems, including infrared sensors that detected heat signatures. Then came the hair-raising near misses that required us to take evasive action. These were no mere balloons. The unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAP, accelerated at speeds up to Mach 1, the speed of sound. They could hold their position, appearing motionless, despite Category 4's hurricane winds of 120 knots. They did not have any visible means of lift, control surfaces, or propulsion. In other words, nothing that resembled normal aircraft with wings, flaps, or engines. They outlasted our fighter jets operating continuously through the day. I'm a formerly trained engineer, but the technology they demonstrated defied my understanding. After that near miss, we had no choice but to submit a safety report, hoping that something could be done before it was too late, but there was no official acknowledgement of what we've experienced and no further mechanism to report the sightings, even as other air crews flying along the East Coast quietly began sharing similar experiences. Our only option was to cancel or move our training as the UAP continued to maneuver in our vicinity unchecked. Nearly a decade later, we still don't know what they were. When I retired in the Navy in 2019, I was one of the first active duty pilots to come forward and publicly testify to Congress. And since the year since, there have been some notable coverage of the encounters, and Congress has taken some action to force military and intelligence agencies to do much more than get to the bottom of these mysteries. There's not been anything near the level of public and official attention that has been paid to the recent shoot-down of a Chinese spy balloon and 3 other unknown objects that were likely research balloons, and that's the problem. Advanced objects demonstrating cutting-edge technology that we cannot explain are routinely flying over our military bases or entering restricted airspace. The Navy has officially acknowledged 11 near misses with UAPs that required evasive action and triggered mandatory safety reports between 2004 and 2021. Advanced UAP also pose a growing safety hazard to commercial airliners. Last May, the Federal Aviation Administration issued an alert after a passenger aircraft flying over West Virginia experienced a rare failure of 2 major systems while passing underneath what appeared to be a UAP. I haven't heard that story, have you? I haven't heard that one at all. One thing we know is these crafts aren't part of some classified U.S. project. We are quite confident that was not the explanation, said Scott Bray, Deputy Director of the Office of Naval Intelligence, who testified before Congress last year. Florida Senator Marco Rubio, who's trying to get to the bottom of this, confirmed in recent interviews that whatever the origin of these objects is, it is not U.S. military. We have things flying over our military bases and places where we're conducting military exercises, and they don't know what it is, and it isn't ours, said Rubio. It's a real national security concern that there are devices, unidentified aerial phenomenon that move in ways we don't understand, that move at speeds and can change direction on a dime. They can outfly us, and if their intention was to do harm, they would have done it by now, because they clearly can outfly us. It's really quite amazing, some of these things, how fast they move and how quickly they can maneuver. It defies understanding. The American public, he goes on to write, must demand accountability. We need to understand what is in our skies, period. In the coming days, he's going to launch the Americans for Safe Aerospace, and they will support pilots and other aerospace professionals who are reporting UAP. We need coordinated, data-driven response that unites the public and private sectors because, we need to find out what these things are. Right now, he says, the pieces of the UAP puzzle are scattered across silos in the military, government, and private sector. We need to integrate and analyze these massive data sets with new methods like artificial intelligence. We also need to make this data available to the best scientists outside of government. We have strong supporters of more data sharing. Senator Rubio has suggested the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO, which was set up last year, share its data on unidentified objects with academic institutions and civilian scientific organizations. So that is starting to happen. Unfortunately, all UAP reports and videos are classified, meaning active duty pilots cannot come forward publicly, and FOIA requests are routinely denied. These are 2 major steps backwards for transparency, but can be mitigated if there is a sharing of data. So there are whistleblower protections for anybody who comes forward, and maybe we will start to get some information. But I'm telling you, this is not a bunch of hooey. These are real, super educated, top-of-the-line military aircraft pilots who routinely run into these things that they can't explain, they don't understand. We're able to see them with multi-sensors. They are able to fly in the air and able, apparently in some cases, to go through the water at very high speeds. We have multiple sensors on some of these sightings. The information is getting to be quite significant, and people are now coming forward because now there's no stigma attached to doing it. But we don't know what these things are. We have a national security concern to find out what is in our airspace that we don't understand, that can fly through our most secure airspaces with impunity. We don't think it's the Chinese, we don't think it's the Russians, and we have been on record as saying it's not anything that we're dealing with. What the heck are these things? Maybe you're right. 49 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on SuperTalk. Grace Point Healthcare delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing, so you'll know how much it's going to cost before the care is delivered. They are best known for their Smart Care plans. Just $69 a month, you get unlimited office visits, free basic labs for the entire year. There is an upgraded Smart Care plan that also includes home visits a couple times a year if you need them. Who does that? Well, the folks at Grace Point Healthcare do. They treat the whole family, even newborns. They have family plans as well. If you marry this with a high-deductible insurance plan, this could save you and your family hundreds of dollars. At Grace Point, they take their time with each patient. They'll see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded wait rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible. It is a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider by Toast of Music City year after year after year. And Grace Point wants you to know they believe in freedom of choice when it comes to vaccines for you and your children. Grace Point Healthcare on Main Street in Franklin, 599-6868, 599-6868 to schedule a visit.